Chapter 1085. Victory and defeat have been decided. Zhang Xiaozhu, who was hiding in the dark, had a sharp glint in his eyes. He gestured with his hands, and the MI7 agents who were lying in ambush immediately began to move. Their real purpose of lying in ambush here was not to kill the third prince. Or rather, that was not their current purpose. The hungry ghosts were creatures of the hungry ghost path, but there was no hungry ghost path in the Tianwu world. Therefore, the birth of a hungry ghost like the 13th prince was already a coincidence. He even had to thank the Nether River Patriarch, who had introduced the Netherblood Sea to the Tianwu world. He had sent capable generals like the Hungry Ghost Path and the Azura Path to Lin Yuan. However, the corpses that the 13th prince had turned into hungry ghosts were not hungry ghosts. In a sense, they were indeed the type of hungry ghosts described in the scriptures of Buddhism. In comparison, the variants in the Tianwu world were obviously much more terrifying. Because they were contagious. Just like zombies, once these hungry ghosts hurt their enemies by biting them, they would quickly turn their enemies into hungry ghosts. Although there were more and more undyings in the northern frontier, it was only because too many people had died to the undyings. In addition, the matter of the elixir of immortality had not been dealt with properly. The outer god of the heavenly passage realm had led the undyings to work together with Su Yan, Lei Fan, and the others. Only then had the power of the Netherblood Sea erupted and almost turned the entire northern frontier into the underworld. Except for the undyings that had been transformed by the elixir of immortality, the vast majority of the undyings had been transformed into existences that wandered the northern frontier. This was unavoidable. However, the undyings in the northern frontier did not have the ability to infect others. If these hungry ghosts were left unchecked, not to mention whether the northern frontier would be affected, the nearby Frost Mirror, Qingjiang, Yunyu, Deadwood, Southern Wasteland, and even the Hengduan mountain range would be greatly affected. They might even turn into ghost regions. At that time, the world would be filled with hungry ghosts. Regardless of whether the karma mentioned by Buddhism or the fate mentioned by Taoism actually exists or not, there must be something worthy of reverence for Taoist Red Cloud and others to be so fearful. Therefore, Lin Yuan really didn't want to bear this sin. After all, the main forces of the Northern Frontier Army were still in the Hengduan mountain range and had yet to be fully withdrawn. The additional Black Water Army and the Northern Frontier Dragon Riders were still at the Northern Frontier Great Wall hunting down the Shuangjian dynasty's army. The Association of the Shifter Emperor was in charge of searching for the Northern Restoration Society. The Imperial Brocade Guards were in charge of maintaining the stability of the Northern Frontier. Night Buyao was mostly scattered across the Frost Mirror Plains. Apart from the MI7, there was no one else to mobilize. They could not ignore the Wandering Sky Demon and ask the Fallen Star Army and the Northern Battlefront Army to come here. Could they? Zhang Xiaozhu put a silver mask on his face and shook his dark green windbreaker. He said in a deep voice, "I think you all know what we are going to face next. So, let me make it clear. These hungry ghosts must be wiped out here. If you are accidentally hurt, I can only say that don't take any chances. Just kill yourselves. After you die, you will be conferred a posthumous official title, which will bring good fortune to your descendants and relatives. If you bring the trouble out of here, even exterminating 10 families is a light punishment." Understood. The group of MI7 agents agreed one after another. No matter how serious the internal strife within the northern region was, there was one thing that was certain, and that was that business was done according to the rules. Even if the two sides were sworn enemies, there would never be the slightest bit of selfishness or deliberate behavior when doing business. Therefore, after Zhang Xiaozhu said that the northern region was incurable, it meant that the poison of these hungry ghosts was really incurable. Move. Zhang Xiaozhu gave the order. His figure flashed, and he had already appeared outside the port. He pulled out a thin horizontal saber from his waist. Wherever the blade passed, the heads of the hungry ghosts were immediately cut off, and then they struggled and fell to the ground. More and more hungry ghosts rushed toward Zhang Xiaozhu. However, the agents of the MI7 quickly filled the gap left by Zhang Xiaozhu's saber. They started to kill the hungry ghosts one by one like a meat grinder. On the other side, the third prince tried to gather his strength again. However, the strange thing was that even if he wanted to pay the price of being disabled or killed, he could not activate the tidal ruin skill. It was as if the cultivation he had accumulated for many years had disappeared along with a strange feeling of his strength flowing away. "Third brother, we are brothers. Do you have any last words?" I will try my best to satisfy you. The 13th prince looked at the depressed third prince, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. He said in an extremely serious tone. Last words, huh? The third prince revealed a sorrowful expression as he said in a low voice. What else can I think now that things have come to this? Arislan, I only hope that you can use your strength to protect the Frost Empire on account of the fact that you are of the royal bloodline of the Frost Empire, and on account of the fact that Father Khan dotes on you so much, to protect the Frost Empire. At the very least, protect the Shuel tribe. The 13th prince did not continue the conversation after he finished speaking. After a long while, he sighed faintly and said in a low voice, If only you were really my third brother. Unfortunately, these words will never come out of my third brother's mouth. You are second brother, right? The second brother who was declared to have died prematurely when he was born. The third prince remained silent. The 13th prince continued, My father once told me that he had hundreds of sons, but the most promising ones weren't me or my third brother. Instead, it was the second son who was declared to have died the moment he was born. However, due to some special reasons, second brother had no choice but to die, because he would never be able to inherit the Mirror Frost court. But I never knew why. Can you tell me? Second brother? The third prince slowly raised his head. His face gradually changed into a fair-skinned young man with delicate facial features. A moment later, his 2 locks of hair were slowly tied up, turning into a pair of gray and white wolf ears. A fluffy gray tail also poked out of his clothes. Do you understand now? The second prince, who revealed his true appearance first, looked at the 13th prince expressionlessly and said, I am my father's son, and I am also the vessel chosen by the wolf god. My parents were both humans, but I was born with the appearance of a demi-human. My father checked the ancient records. There were not many people like me in history, but they were not rare either. From the age of 15 to 55, I would gradually lose myself and become the legendary wolf god. Therefore, when I was born, I could only be a dead person. Chapter 1086. The Wolf God of the Frost Mirror Grassland? Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes. Even the system could not find any information about this grassland wolf god. However, many years ago, the Frost Mirror Grassland was indeed ruled by a powerful wolf-type monster clan. However, the war between humans and monsters had lasted for too long, resulting in a gap in culture and history. What happened to this wolf-type monster clan that had disappeared long before the war between humans and monsters? Where did they go in the end? It was still an unsolved mystery. According to the bloodline, Raymond should also be of the bloodline of the demonic wolf clan. However, at that time, almost all the demonic beast clans had a common ancestor, just like the current Hengduan Mountains. The current mountain-shaking apes could still be related to Subaru if they traced their bloodline, but after a few thousand years, or even tens of thousands of years, if something happened in the middle, the mountain-shaking apes would become a separate demonic ape clan, and would no longer have anything to do with the Sacred Heart apes. If that wolf-type monster clan did not disappear and instead hid in the Frost Mirror Grassland, it would be impossible for them not to leave any traces behind. Unless, Grotto Heaven? Lin Yuan's eyes showed a dignified look. After all, although humans had not yet risen at that time, monster clans were everywhere. Powerful monsters were everywhere and the Hengduan mountain range could not compare to them. Therefore, a powerful clan that could occupy the Frost Mirror Grassland and rule over humans and monsters at that time was definitely an existence that stood at the top of the world. Such a clan could not have disappeared without a trace. Even if there was a gap in the era, there would be clues from all kinds of unofficial history and biographies. It would not be as simple as just a legend in the Frost Mirror Grassland. The only logical explanation was that the demonic wolf clan had participated in some major event, or perhaps they had predicted the rise of the human race in the future. Thus, they had created a paradise world for them to live in and hid it in the depths of the Heaven Martial World. Just like the Dragon Palace built in the underwater secret realm in the northern frontier. Although Lin Yuan did not find any corpses in it, he obtained some inherited memories. Therefore, he was sure that the underwater secret realm was built to take refuge. A centipede dies but never falls down. These words suddenly flashed through Lin Yuan's mind. An incomparably powerful Yao clan would not disappear without a sound. Furthermore, judging from the evil nature of the Frost Mirror Grassland and the fact that this second prince had appeared out of nowhere, it was likely that the Grassland Wolf tribe had been secretly controlling the Frost Mirror dynasty all this while. The so-called carrier of the wolf god. It was just a smokescreen. It was impossible for a human to give birth to a descendant with the bloodline of a demonic beast, unless the child was still in the mother's womb, and its body was already possessed by an external force, and underwent a certain transformation. Only then would it be born with the characteristics of a demonic beast. It was just like Ning Tianxing from the Qingjiang Empire. He was clearly a reincarnated flood dragon. Even if he hadn't undergone any modifications, as his body slowly grew, a flood dragon tattoo would gradually appear on his body. This second prince is not human. It could even be said that he was not the second prince of the Shuangjian dynasty. He was the bloodline of the Grassland Wolf clan. He had used the power of incense to reincarnate into the appearance of a human, and disguised himself as such. Vaguely, a powerful aura descended from the sky. Lin Yuan looked over and saw a demonic wolf made entirely of blood and qi appear in front of him. The Eye of God failed to scan. It had failed 3 times in a row. Although he did not obtain any exact data, from the feedback given by the Eye of God, the opponent's cultivation level should be far above his. The blood and qi demonic wolf clawed at Lin Yuan and bared its fangs at him. It even circled around Lin Yuan. After a full 5 breaths it said, "Black Jiao, our clan has no relationship with you, so I am not going to pretend to be polite with you. So I will be direct. The Frost Mirror Grassland is our clan's territory. If you don't want to die, stop here." "What if I don't?" Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed coldly. He stared at the blood and qi demonic wolf in front of him and sneered, "Between us demonic beasts, since when did we have to pay attention to seniority and first come first serve? If you came here with your real body, this king might show you some respect. But for a thing like you who hides its head and shows its tail, what right do you have to threaten this king?" The blood and qi demonic wolf's murderous aura burst forth. It stared fiercely at Lin Yuan, as if it could pounce and bite him at any time. The difference in cultivation level? Sorry. That was only for ordinary people. Although Lin Yuan's cultivation level was still at the 8th level of the Desolate Demon Realm, as a cheat, he could directly use the power of Joss Flames to fight others through the system. This also meant that as long as the opponent was not a monster-level existence that could instantly kill Lin Yuan before he could react, then they would not be facing a desolate demon, but a false god. With more than 400 million Joss Flames in hand, those false gods who had been accumulating for thousands of years might not be able to use as much Joss Flames as Lin Yuan. After all, they needed Joss Flames to prolong their lives, but Lin Yuan did not need them. Therefore, even if he determined that the opponent's cultivation level was far above his, no matter if he was a demonic king or an ancestral demon, he would only be able to touch the peak of this small world. An existence of this level was not qualified to make Lin Yuan obey. Do you think that you can change this king's mind just by staring at this king? Lin Yuan's lips curled into a sinister smile as he said coldly, "This king has his eyes on the Frost Mirror Grassland, so he has to keep it in his hands. If you have the ability, then show me your true colors and fight this king. When the time comes, the loser can just leave. If this king loses, not only will the Frost Mirror Grassland be yours, even the northern frontier will be yours. But if you only rely on your mouth, this king advises you to sleep early. Everything can happen in your dreams." It was unknown to Lin Yuan how many powerhouses there were left in the powerful demonic wolf clan, but he could guess by looking at the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The powerful dragon clan of the Four Seas could only support 6 semi-divinity stage powerhouses. Although the rest of the ancestral demons also had the bloodline of the dragon clan, they were still members of other clans. They could only be regarded as demonic beasts with dragon blood, not the dragon clan of the Four Seas. If that was the case, how many false gods could the demonic wolf clan, which had been in seclusion for countless years, possibly have? If they really fought, Lin Yuan would not be afraid at all. After all, as the deity king of the northern frontier god system, he had existences like Batu and Kagura as his subordinates. As long as he was willing, he could share the Joss Flames of the entire northern frontier god system. Chapter 1087. The blood-red demonic wolf still bared its fangs at Lin Yuan. But no matter what, Lin Yuan was right about one thing. Demonic beasts never cared about seniority or the rules of first come, first served. Therefore, if Lin Yuan took a fancy to the Frost Mirror Grassland and used force to conquer it, the only thing the demonic wolf clan could do was to get out of seclusion and fight the northern frontier group head-on. The winner would win and the loser would have to leave. Were they afraid of the northern frontier group? Maybe, maybe not. Lin Yuan was sure that the demonic wolf clan was not as powerful as the Endless Sea. After all, the entire Frost Mirror grassland might not be as powerful as the dragon tribe of the Four Seas in the Endless Sea, let alone a demonic wolf clan that had been hiding behind the scenes for many years. But the foundation was still there. If the demonic wolf clan really wanted to start a war with the Northern Frontier group, they could indeed give the Northern Frontier a fatal blow at this juncture. But at the same time, Lin Yuan was very sure that the demonic wolf clan would not dare to start a war. Lin Yuan still had not figured out what the Surreal and the demonized black tortoise in the underwater secret realm were fighting against and why they ended up like this. He could only be sure that the demonic wolf clan was either a creature of the untainted land or from the world of his previous life. Because they had seen through Lin Yuan's background, he could leave the underwater secret realm safely. Who built the underwater secret realm? What was it hiding from? This was the missing part of the inherited memory. Lin Yuan did not even know whether the owner of the underwater secret realm had survived the disaster or not. Was he living in the underwater secret realm now, or was he too late to hide in the underwater secret realm to become a part of the Hengduan Mountains formation in the end? Anyway, he did not see any corpses in the underwater dragon palace. Occasionally, he saw a few corpses, but they were all demonic beasts with dragon blood. It remained to be seen whether the owner of the underwater secret realm was hiding from the same thing as the demonic wolf clan. But at the moment, he was sure that the thing they were hiding from was not far away from the Tianwu world. It could come again at any time. Otherwise, the demonic wolf clan would have come out long ago. How could the Shuangjian dynasty have the chance to gallop on the Frost Mirror grassland? Come out and start a war with the northern frontier? They were courting death. It was hard to say whether they could defeat Lin Yuan or not, but if they provoked the thing they were hiding from came out, they would be wiped out. The blood chi fiend wolf took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then he said coldly, "Black Flood Dragon, you seem to be certain that we don't dare to start a war with the North, right?" "No. No." Lin Yuan shook his head and said indifferently, "I'm just stating my opinion. It's very simple. I want the Frost Mirror grassland. If you are willing to give it to me, that's good. If not, you can fight with the northern frontier and see who wins." "Aren't you afraid?" The demonic wolf glared at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan interrupted the blood demon wolf. His tone was still indifferent as he said, "There are many things that I am afraid of, but there are many things that I cannot avoid doing just because I am afraid. On the contrary, it is precisely because I am afraid that I have to grasp enough bargaining chips. As long as I have enough strength, then those who make me afraid will be trampled under my feet." As soon as his voice fell, the momentum of the blood demon wolf paused, and it looked at Lin Yuan in a daze, not knowing what to say for a while. Wasn't this a little too overbearing? He was just short of saying that he was afraid that the other forces would join hands to destroy him. In order to make sure that day would not come, he decided to strike first and destroy the other forces first. The demonic wolf was silent for a moment. It seemed to be organizing its words. Then it said, "Black Jiao, you've come this far. So you should know what the Frost Mirror grassland means to our tribe. Moreover, I don't think you can tolerate the legend of the grassland wolf god after you take over the Frost Mirror grassland. Just like the dragon tribe of the Four Seas had their own god system, the grassland wolf god was also a god system. No matter what kind of existence it was, as long as they wanted to reach the realm of immortality, they could not avoid the power of incense. Even in the untainted world, there was always a competition between orthodoxies. Just like the War of the Three Tribes, the War of Witches and Demons, and later on, when humans killed demons and ghosts, they were all fighting for the power of incense. On a macro level, the ancient conflicts between Buddhism and Taoism and the 100 schools of thought were the same. Since the northern frontier god system had been established, they would never tolerate the existence of the grassland wolf god. Therefore, from this perspective, if Lin Yuan was determined to take over the Frost Mirror grassland, the demonic wolf tribe might really start a war with the northern frontier group. Otherwise, once the legend of the grassland wolf god was suppressed and eliminated, they would naturally not be able to obtain the power of incense. Those masters who had exceeded their lifespan and relied on the power of incense to prolong their lives would die one by one. Lin Yuan remained silent. A war between god systems was never a small matter. Was it really necessary to go to that extent? After a while, the demonic wolf broke the silence again. It said, "However, it's inconvenient for our tribe to leave our secluded place. We can't fight with the northern frontier directly. Therefore, unless it's absolutely necessary, the masters of our tribe will not leave our territory. However, we will never give up the Frost Mirror grassland, so... At this point, it paused and growled. Let's have a bet. If we win, the northern frontier will have to give up the plan to attack the Frost Mirror grassland. What do you think? What if I win? Lin Yuan lifted his eyelids and asked. Humph. The demonic wolf snorted and said while gritting its teeth, we'll disband the grassland wolf god system. Moreover, the masters of our tribe will join the northern frontier and become members of the northern frontier god system. We'll listen to your orders. The stakes could be considered heavy or light at the same time. If the grassland wolf god won, the northern frontier would have to pay a high price. They would only have to give up the Frost Mirror grassland. Under the restrictions of the grassland wolf god, the Shuangjian dynasty, which had already suffered heavy losses, would never provoke the northern frontier again. By then, the northern frontier would have strategic depth no matter whether it was recovering the original territories of the Shenwu dynasty or attacking the southern wilderness and the Chuyun dynasty. On the other hand, if the northern frontier won, although the grassland wolf god system would be disbanded and would join the northern frontier and listen to Lin Yuan's orders, it was still better than the northern frontier occupying the Frost Mirror grassland and cutting off the source of the grassland wolf god's incense power. The entire grassland wolf god system would be destroyed. If that's the case, I don't have any objections. How do you plan to bet? Lin Yuan asked with interest. Chapter 1088. The blood demon wolf pondered for a moment, then suddenly looked in the direction of the fairy and said in a deep voice. His name is Daria Qi. If translated into the common language, it means to suppress. You have to know that no matter if it's humans or demonic beasts, a name is very important. Especially in the Frost Mirror grassland, there has never been a situation where a name does not live up to its name. With this name, it can be said to be the most outstanding member of the younger generation in our tribe. Therefore, our candidate is him. After pausing for a moment, it turned its head and looked at Lin Yuan, then continued. Send someone from your side to duel with Daria Qi. The outcome of this duel will determine the outcome of the duel. How about it? Daria Qi, the meaning of suppression. A profound light flashed in Lin Yuan's eyes. The word, suppression, was not used casually. If a genius with the name, suppression, really lived up to its name, it meant that in this era, there was no one who could beat Daria Qi in terms of talent. However, Lin Yuan estimated that the range of this was only within the hidden world wolf tribe. No matter if it was the dragon god of the four seas who was envious of him and was lured into depravity by the great old ones, or himself who could be called a cheater, or even Guan Zhaoshan who performed the taboo ceremony and gave her everything to Lin Yuan, they were all geniuses who could suppress an era. However, that was only in an ordinary era. Tianwu world was about to be repaired. The older generation of cultivators and demonic beasts were destined to be weak and fall behind. Therefore, in this era, a large number of geniuses and monsters would appear like a geyser. Just like in the novels in his previous life, the main character's golden era could be said to be an era where monsters were everywhere. In such a situation, even a cheater like Lin Yuan would not dare to say that he could suppress an era. All right, I'll let the 13th prince fight. After all, we've already met, so I won't change my candidate. Lin Yuan replied with a smile. He wanted to see who would win between this so-called era-suppressing genius and the future Hungry Ghost Path's Pathmaster. At the same time, both the 13th prince and Daria Qi had received orders from Lin Yuan or the Hidden Wolf clan. The 13th prince's gaze suddenly became profound. He smashed the broken halberd in his hand and grinned. So, my second brother is really dead. You are just a demonic beast who has taken over my second brother's body. When the broken halberd landed, a grey wolf claw suddenly stretched out from the void. Dariachi's exquisite facial features did not have the slightest change in expression. However, not long after, dark purple liver mortis spots slowly appeared on his face. Transform? No, a mimicry? The 13th prince took back the broken halberd that had been stopped by the wolf claw. He raised his eyebrows and grinned. How interesting. No wonder you could exist as my third brother's shadow for so many years without being seen through. It turns out that you have such an ability. It seems that your mimicry can not only imitate the appearance of others, but also their abilities, right? When the 13th prince finished speaking, the liver mortis spots on Dariachi's face suddenly disappeared. It was only at this moment that a blank expression appeared on his face. It was common knowledge that wolves were not only divided into packs and lone wolves. In many packs of wolves, there were creatures called Bei. The so-called Bei referred to the existence that lived together with a pack of wolves. In many legends, the Bei was an existence that was born with a disability due to genetic defects. Most of their limbs were of different lengths, and their two front legs were extremely short. They were completely unable to rely on their own strength to walk. They had to be placed on the back of a healthy wolf to be able to move together. However, although the Bei was a creature with a deformed and disabled body, it had to contribute to the pack if it lived in a pack of wolves. Otherwise, it would be chased out by the Wolf King and become a wandering lone wolf. It was still fine for ordinary wolves. If they became a lone wolf, they would become a lone wolf. They would still be able to survive. However, the Bei was different. Once the disabled Bei left the pack of wolves, even moving would be a problem. Naturally, it would not be able to survive. Therefore, under the premise that the Bei's movements did not change, it would either be abandoned by the pack of wolves and die, or it would quickly adapt to the environment and contribute to the pack of wolves. For example, it would make plans, arrange ambushes, and so on. Usually, a pack of wolves that had the Bei's command would be more cunning than a pack of wolves that did not have the Bei's command. It was just like a group of wandering soldiers and an organized army. There was a huge difference between them. Dariachi was like a Bei in the hidden werewolf clan. Because of the deformity in his body, he left the hidden wolf clan and secretly possessed the second prince's body. Although Dariachi was extremely talented in cultivation, he was still a disabled Bei. He could not survive without the pack of wolves. Therefore, Dariachi took the initiative to possess the second prince. He gave up his original body and became what he was now. However, mimicry was not some kind of technique or ritual. It was a special ability of the Bei. Although there were some limitations, once it was activated, no matter what kind of existence the opponent was, it could change into the opponent's appearance. If it was lucky, it could even inherit the opponent's physique and ability. Just like how it could perfectly imitate the third prince's appearance and special physique. It could even directly use the tidal wave technique. Although it was also limited by the same physique as the third prince, strictly speaking, even the third prince himself could only fight it on par with the Beis. But now, it was trying to mimic the 13th prince in front of it. It was just an experiment, but the whole innate ability directly collapsed. If it was a technique or something like that, the backlash alone would be enough to make it suffer. You want to mimic my appearance? The 13th prince gently shook his head. His gray eyes kept moving, looking very strange. Hearing Dariachi's breathing getting heavier and heavier, and seeing his bloodshot eyes, the 13th prince nodded in satisfaction and said, "That's why I said that you guys don't know what kind of power I got after I died at the northern frontier. How can an ordinary person be qualified to spy on the territory of a saint?" When the 13th prince's roar ended, blood was already flowing out of Dariachi's ears. It was as if his eardrums were shattered by this roar. Chapter 1089. Although the 13th prince's cultivation could only be compared to those who had just entered the Void Realm, he was a special existence. After all, he was one of the 9 saints, the Hungry Ghost Path's Path Lord. Once the Tianwu world completed the 3 realms and 6 paths, the 13th prince would become one of the strongest existences in this world. Dariachi's mimicry was not an ability to imitate someone's appearance. Since he could disguise himself as the 3rd prince, it meant that his mimicry could also imitate someone's origin and physique. Such an ability could be said to be a terrifying talent in any world. But the problem was that the mimicry had to be built on the foundation of power. If an ordinary person had such talent and could mimic himself as a Heaven Star border cultivator, it was not impossible. However, he might not even be able to last for a breath's time before being blown up by the terrifying aura energy. Lin Yuan did not know how it was like in other worlds, but in the Tianwu world's cultivation system, other than demons who were born with strong physiques, no matter what cultivation method one cultivated, one had to cultivate a martial cultivation method when they entered the foundation establishment stage. They had to use spiritual items, pills, demon cores, and other cultivation resources to continuously strengthen their physique. The more perfect this stage was, the higher their future achievements would be. Therefore, one's family background could be said to be a huge threshold that determined a cultivator's future potential. Even the northern frontier would only give out a portion of the resources to nurture new people. It was barely enough, but definitely not enough to reach the foundation establishment stage. Unless the person's talent reached a certain level, then the Northern Frontier Academy would spare no effort to nurture them. The stronger one's physique, the more aura energy they could contain. And from a long-term perspective, the amount of aura energy could determine a cultivator's future limit. Even at a basic level, it determined a cultivator's ability to fight continuously and explode in an instant. With Dariachi's cultivation, mimicking Heaven Star Border cultivators and Void Realm cultivators was not a problem. He could even mimic Dao Initiation Realm cultivators. But one of the 9 saints? Just wait to be stuffed to death. Seeing this scene, Lin Yuan grinned and looked at the Blood Chi Demon Wolf with a mocking gaze. He said, "Looks like our bet has not even officially started, but the result is already decided." That's not necessarily true. Although the Blood Chi Demon Wolf's eyes were slightly cold, Lin Yuan did not see any signs of panic. Dariachi suddenly took a deep breath and looked at the 13th prince in shock. He said in a deep voice, "It seems like you are right. Third prince had plotted against you and wanted you to die in the north. However, you benefited from the misfortune and obtained a power that third prince couldn't even comprehend." "No. Even I can't comprehend such a terrifying power." At this point, the transformation on Dariachi's body suddenly froze. A thin layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead as he said, "I can't analyze your power, but my intuition tells me that if I continue to mimic you, I'm afraid I will explode and die. I thought that third brother's special physique was already powerful enough. I didn't expect you." Before he could finish his sentence, strands of black mist spread out from Dariachi's body. In the blink of an eye, the power that the 13th prince had devoured changed owners and returned to Dariachi's control. The more powerful the ability, the more restrictions it will face. Although I can barely use it once, I don't believe that you can use it again so soon. Dariachi opened his mouth and revealed a sinister smile. He roared, "Then let's take this. My strongest attack." Devour was the profound of the Hungry Ghost Path. At the same time, it was also one of the most basic abilities of the Hungry Ghost Path's Pathmaster. It could even be said that the Pathmaster of the Hungry Ghost Path relied on devouring to grow. This power that the natives of the Tianwu world couldn't understand was just a small skill in the eyes of the Pathmaster of the Hungry Ghost Path. However, even a small skill couldn't hide the power of Devour. In the eyes of a cheat player like Lin Yuan, Devour was a type of skill. Furthermore, it had a very long cooldown. Every time he used Devour, he would need a total of 49 days to cool down. Of course, this was what the system style said. In the orthodox cultivation system, these 49 days should be the ability obtained from digesting or refining the Devour. However, the smile on the 13th prince's face became slightly twisted. Black mist spread out from his mouth again. He laughed sinisterly. "That's right. I can't devour this power a second time. However, who told you that you can use this attack?" Dariachi's expression changed slightly. Although the mimicry didn't succeed, it did imitate part of the Hungry Ghost Path's ability. Therefore, he could also see the strange power of the Hungry Ghost Path. Although he didn't know what kind of ability the 13th prince used, it was obvious that the 13th prince didn't panic at all when the two of them were so close to each other. He didn't even try to dodge. Instead, he directly used a new ability. It was obvious that this new ability could at least resolve the current crisis. Hungry Ghost Path, Whale Devour. The 13th prince's voice followed closely behind the black mist. Just as he finished speaking, the black mist had already enveloped the enormous power. A moment later, Dariachi watched as the huge force was torn apart and devoured. Soon after, the 13th prince's deadpan face flushed red for a moment without any warning. The remaining halberd in his hand also fell heavily. Cough. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Before he could think, Dariachi had already been sent flying. Fast. Too fast. He didn't even see how the 13th prince had attacked. He only knew that the moment the enormous force was torn apart, he had already been sent flying backwards. Was he countered again? No. Dariachi landed on the ground and kicked up a huge cloud of dust. A huge crater was formed. The injury wasn't fatal, but it wasn't a light injury that could be healed in a short time. Dariachi's eyes were obviously filled with a blank expression. The force that landed on his body was definitely less than 4 million gene. If it was that kind of force, not to mention the fact that he couldn't withstand it in his incomplete state, even if he was at his peak state, he would probably be smashed into a pile of meat paste. However, when the sharp pain entered his mind, Dariachi also realized the extent of his injury. His chest collapsed, his spine shattered, his blood vessels burst, his internal organs were damaged. Chapter 1090. Even a Daluo Golden Immortal wouldn't be able to save a mortal from such injuries. However, for a great demon like Dariachi, who had reached the desolate demon realm and could use the power of incense to a certain extent, it wasn't a fatal injury. He would be able to recover from his injuries in at most 2 hours. However, to be able to injure him to such an extent, the power of that blow was definitely more than 500,000 kilograms. This didn't make sense. 500,000 kilograms of power wasn't rare. Even if a cultivator in the later stages of the Heaven Star Border Realm attacked with all his strength, it would be around 500,000 kilograms. This was also why the third prince, who cultivated the tidal ruin ending technique, was so terrifying. Once the Heaven Star Border third prince unleashed his full strength, his third punch could reach 4 times the power of a Heaven Star Border realm cultivator. He wouldn't even lose to a Netherworld realm cultivator, let alone a cultivator in the same realm. If he didn't hold back, anyone in the same realm would die from this third punch. However, the upper limit of power was one thing, and normal attacks were another. Even a cheat like Lin Yuan would need to lay down a foundation if he wanted to reach his current limit. Unless he used a skill like the Tail of the Sea Conqueror, he wouldn't be able to reach his limit in one blow. However, the 13th prince didn't make any moves. He didn't even use his aura energy. He just shouted the word whale swallow, and smashed out with his halberd. The power he unleashed was far more than 500,000 kilograms. Do you know how the whale race in the endless sea hunts? I've seen it in some ancient documents. The 13th prince walked casually to the crater created by Dariachi and said, "The members of the whale race are all huge in size. Even a young whale race can carry the imperial city of the Shenwu dynasty on its back. A large ocean can only support one of these creatures. Despite their huge size and unparalleled power, the whale race never hunts them. They only need to swim in the endless sea. Every time they open their mouths to breathe, a lot of sea beasts and beasts will be sucked into their mouths. If they are lucky, they can wait for the next breath to escape. If they are unlucky, they will be directly swallowed into their stomachs for digestion. My way of swallowing is to imitate the way whales eat." The essence of the hungry ghost realm was greed and devouring. No matter what the target was, whether it was living beings, energy, or even some weak laws, they could all be devoured by the hungry ghost realm. However, the real world was not the same as a game. Not everyone had a fixed model and skill. After grasping the power of the hungry ghost realm, how to use it and how to play with it depended on the master of the hungry ghost realm. Whale swallow was created by the 13th prince by imitating the way whales ate. Even Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. His level was obviously higher than that of the 13th prince and Dariachi. Therefore, even without the 13th prince's explanation, he could understand how this whale swallow worked. To put it simply, whale swallow was to use the power of the hungry ghost realm to directly swallow the target into one's mouth. There was no need to chew or digest. Within a breath, the second stage of whale swallow would be carried out, and a portion of the power that was about to be swallowed would be directly spat out. Currently, the conversion rate of the power that the 13th prince spat out was about 40%. In other words, after swallowing 2 million kilograms of power into the hungry ghost realm, the power that was spat out instantly reached 1.6 million kilograms. Furthermore, this skill of his was clearly still in its initial stage. There was a possibility of it being perfected. It looked like the outcome had been decided. Lin Yuan glanced at the blood chi demon wolf from the corner of his eye. However, he realized that there was still no change in its expression. He could not help but be on guard. He was not afraid that the other party would go back on their words or turn hostile. Although the northern frontier was a new force, it was now extremely rich. It was probably not much worse than a big clan like the Hidden Wolf Demon Wolf. At most they would just go to war. However, the blood chi demon wolf did not turn hostile, nor did it show any signs of panic after Dariachi was heavily injured. This meant that this battle was not over yet. As expected, the power of these Hidden Wolf Demon Wolf was not to be underestimated. Dariachi, who was lying at the bottom of the pit, did not pay any attention to the 13th prince. Instead, his lips were constantly moving, and he was speaking in a language that was hard to understand. However, there was nothing strange about it. It was as if he was just mumbling unconsciously before he died. That was not the common language of the Qianwu world, nor was it the language of the Shuangjian dynasty. Instead, it was a language that Lin Yuan had never heard of before. However, the content seemed to be magical. Even though he could not understand it at all, Lin Yuan was able to understand the meaning behind it. Dragon elephant. Prajna. Scripture? Lin Yuan's eyelids twitched. He had heard of the dragon elephant prajna technique before, but it was only a martial arts technique written by Old Man Jean in his previous life. Of course, if one were to completely follow the description of the dragon elephant prajna technique, it should be considered a xianxia level technique. After all, this technique was a painstaking effort, and the 13th layer of the dragon elephant prajna technique was the limit. The practitioner needed to live for 1,000 years, and after cultivating it, they would have the strength of 13 dragons and 13 elephants. If one did not take into account the factors of cultivation, the strength of one elephant was around 10,000 jin, and the strength of one dragon was equivalent to the strength of 10 elephants. If one were to cultivate this technique to the extreme, one would have the strength of 1,430,000 jin. This level of strength had already surpassed the limits of those cultivators in the Heaven Star border realm. Just what was going on with this hidden wolf demon clan? First it was the tidal ruin technique, and now it was the dragon elephant prajna technique. Did they really put all their points into strength? However, Lin Yuan was only thinking about it. He did not think that the dragon elephant prajna technique was the dragon elephant prajna technique. Otherwise, could it be that those gods and demons that spread the Tao of cultivation to the Qianwu world were all experts from Wuxia novels? Furthermore, Dariachi's injuries were not light. Even standing up in a short period of time would be a problem. Even if he was given a technique similar to the dragon elephant prajna technique, he would need to be able to use it first. Boom! Suddenly, Lin Yuan raised his head and stared at the place where the 13th prince and Daria Qi were fighting. His expression changed as he turned his head to look at the blood Qi wolf demon. He said coldly, "No wonder you wanted to make this bet with me. So you were confident of winning all along. However, even if you won, can this be considered as Daria Qi winning?" Chapter 1091. Hearing that, the blood demon wolf grinned and said, "Black Jiao, your words are really interesting. We agreed before that the two juniors would fight to decide the winner of this battle, but you didn't set any other restrictions. How is the summoning god's secret technique of my clan's juniors not counted as personal strength? Could it be that when fighting against a strong enemy, you wouldn't use such a technique?" The summoning god's secret technique was definitely a taboo existence in the Qianwu world. Just like when Guan Zhaoshan summoned anyone, what she did was no different from sacrificing herself to summon an evil god. The orthodox gods of the Qianwu world actually didn't exist at all. Regardless of whether it was the Yin gods worshipped by the various empires, the northern frontier god system, or the grassland wolf god system, they were all considered wild gods. Even in the age of chaos like his previous world, it would take hundreds of years for them to slowly evolve into a true mythical system. In a world like the Qianwu world that had a cultivation system, gods? Weren't they just some strong cultivators or monsters? However, there were a few of them, but they couldn't be considered gods. It was just that when humans were still being oppressed by the demonic beasts, a few leaders had appeared. However, due to the fragmentation of the world and the interference of the protectors of the Heaven Gate, even after humans had dominated the Heaven Martial world, there were still no legendary figures like the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Therefore, from a formal point of view, even Lin Yuan can be regarded as a wild god. If he is like the shadow demon Su Yan, and his style of doing things is a little strange and evil, then he can even be regarded as an evil god. But in such a big environment, there were still many summoning god's secret techniques. That was to offer sacrifices to summon a god to assist the summoning god in battle. The strength of the gods was different. Some would give the summoning god some buffs, some would send down a projection to directly kill a strong enemy. Different gods naturally had different requirements. The stronger the god, the bigger the appetite. Moreover, the number of sacrifices was determined by the rules and rituals, and might not necessarily correspond to the god's needs. For example, when Guan Zhaoshan summoned Lin Yuan, it was already considered a high-level ritual, and the sacrifice was Guan Zhaoshan herself. Because from the moment Lin Yuan descended, that woman had been completely erased, and could no longer be reincarnated. Dariachi's summoning god's secret technique might not be as extreme as Guan Zhaoshan's, but it was still a technique of the wolf race. Even Lin Yuan had to be cautious. After a while, a figure slowly formed. With just a cursory glance, one would think that the illusory image looked like an elephant. However, as the illusory image continued to solidify, one could see that the elephant was covered in dark golden dragon scales. There was also a pair of horns on its head. It looked mighty and extraordinary. Dragon Elephant Demonic King? A great demon who had left a legend on the Frost Mirror grassland suddenly flashed in Lin Yuan's mind. He was also a great demon of the grassland who could compete with the grassland wolves at that time under the rule of the grassland wolves. It was said that he had the blood of the Crescent Elephant clan and the Dragon clan. He was born with extraordinary strength and had mastered some secret techniques that only the Dragon clan possessed. He was an extremely powerful demon king. However, with the disappearance of the wolf race of the grassland, the Dragon Elephant Demon King also disappeared in the long river of history. Now, it seemed that the archenemy of the wolf race of the grassland was also in the same boat as the wolf race of the hidden world. Although the summoning mystic technique was rare, there were many people or monsters who secretly practiced it. Even in the world of Lin Yuan's previous life, there were still various kinds of summoning immortals and divine fighting techniques. Although it was not the orthodox way of cultivation, it was also the best among the unorthodox methods. However, the wolf race of the hidden world was too shameless. Daria Qi and the 13th Prince's cultivation were about the same. The confrontation between the two of them should be based on their own means. However, Daria Qi actually used such a secret technique to summon a projection of the Dragon Elephant Demon King after he was seriously injured. Wasn't this clearly showing that he was bullying the 13th Prince? In other words, this battle was a trap that the 13th Prince had prepared for him from the very beginning. No matter who he sent out, Lin Yuan couldn't do it personally because of Dariachi's seniority. Naturally, people like Batu and Kagura couldn't do it either. However, if he chose to send out a junior who was in the late stage of the Heaven Realm, regardless of the outcome, it would be equivalent to facing a projection of the Dragon Elephant Demon King. Although he didn't know how much power this projection had inherited from the real body, it was definitely not easy to deal with. Lin Yuan's gaze was piercingly cold. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and a green light swept out. In the blink of an eye, it had already broken through the restrictions of time and space and appeared above the 13th Prince's head. Summoning God's secret technique? The 13th Prince's gaze turned slightly. He slowly raised his right hand and smiled sinisterly. If that's the case, I won't hold back. As soon as he finished speaking, a round phantom that was wrapped in grey fog suddenly appeared behind the 13th Prince. There seemed to be 6 grooves on the round phantom. However, at this moment, only a scarlet gem and a gloomy gem were embedded in them. The other 4 grooves were empty. The Dragon Elephant Demon King, who had just finished condensing, had a solemn expression. Although he didn't know what kind of means this junior in front of him had used, even he couldn't help but tremble slightly at this moment. It was as if that round phantom was an extremely terrifying treasure. At this moment, a green light suddenly appeared in the sky above the 13th Prince's head. When it didn't move, it revealed the appearance of a willow branch. In the next moment, absolute heaven connection and plain seal. The moment the willow branch appeared, this part of the world was suddenly sealed abruptly. The interference from the outside world couldn't penetrate the space barrier formed by the willow branch. After all, it was born in the primordial chaos and was formed by the law of space. Even in the Eldritch world, there might not be many people who could break through such a seal, let alone the natives of the Tianwu world. More importantly, there was a price to pay for summoning a secret technique. Daria Qi, the Dragon Elephant Demon King and the Blood Wolf Demon King had obviously come prepared. The method to summon the Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection must have been a method that they had prepared beforehand. After Daria Qi summoned the Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection, he didn't seem to be affected at all. Obviously, there were only 2 possibilities. One was that the Hidden Wolf tribe had already completed this series of rituals and imitated the unorthodox talisman technique to seal this set of rituals. When necessary, the user would activate the talisman technique to summon the sealed Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection. However, the possibility of this was not high. It was still a mystery who the northern frontier would send out to fight, and the energy sealed in the talisman technique was quite limited. Chapter 1092. As the most outstanding member of the younger generation of the Hidden Werewolf tribe, Daria Qi had the name of Suppress. Hence, Once he had to summon the projection of the Dragon Elephant Demon King, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. This also proved that the enemy was very strong. Hence, it was impossible to seal up much energy with just talisman techniques. If the enemy could not be dealt a fatal blow before the energy was depleted, the hidden werewolf tribe would be the ones to lose in the end. Lose? This option was absolutely unacceptable to the hidden werewolf tribe, who would do anything to win and even bully the weak. Therefore, the current situation was very obvious. The hidden wolf clan should have used some kind of taboo method during the summoning ritual to transfer the price that Daria Chi should have paid to other people or demonic beasts. It was only under such circumstances that Daria Chi could summon the Dragon Elephant Demon King without being affected. But now, absolute heavenly connection, dimensional seal. In this sealed world, before the 13th prince, Daria Chi, and the Dragon Elephant Demon King fought to the death. Unless Lin Yuan took the initiative to retrieve the willow branch, the external forces would not be able to affect this world at all. The price of summoning the projection of the Dragon Elephant Demon King would also be borne by Daria Chi himself. Black Jiao, how dare you interfere in this battle? The blood werewolf tribe's expression changed. It stared at Lin Yuan fiercely again. Lin Yuan remained silent. He only turned his head slowly and his gaze met the blood werewolf tribes for a moment. However, it was only for a moment because the moment Lin Yuan turned his head, the blood werewolf tribe suddenly felt a sense of fear. It had a premonition that if it continued to speak, this Black Jiao would definitely make it pay an unimaginable price. Lin Yuan stared at the blood demon wolf with its head lowered for a moment. Suddenly, he swung his tail, and the picture of the sealed world appeared not far in front of him again, like a projector. At this moment, Lin Yuan said slowly, "Previously, when you came to look for this king, you wanted to have a bet between the younger generation. This king gave you a chance because it was not easy for the grassland werewolf tribe to have a long history. Now that you want to bully the younger generation, this king will not hold it against you." What? Are you saying that the Dragon Elephant Demon King is not enough? Is there anyone else who wants to join the battle? Speaking of this, Lin Yuan changed the topic, and his murderous aura overflowed. He growled, "In my opinion, let's not gamble anymore. Tomorrow, I will lead the army to the Frost Mirror grassland. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, I will exterminate your grassland wolf clan." The blood werewolf tribe opened its mouth. No one knew what it was thinking at this moment, but it became strangely silent. In the image before them, Daria Chi was already seriously injured. In addition, after the dimension was sealed, all the energy used to summon the Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection fell on him. His face was pale and his breathing was weak. Obviously, if Daria Chi continued to maintain the existence of the Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection, he would probably exhaust himself to death even without the 13th prince's help. Lin Yuan's gaze shifted slightly. Even if Daria Chi did not care about his own life, he could only maintain the existence of the Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection for 5 breaths. However, he did not even intend to admit defeat. This also meant that they probably thought that the Dragon Elephant Demon King's projection would be able to kill the 13th prince within these 5 breaths. At that time, even if both sides were to perish together, Daria Chi would die in his hands. On the other hand, the 13th prince would be killed by the projection. If they were to be calculative, the northern region was indeed at a disadvantage. On the other side, the northern frontier is a good move. The Dragon Elephant Demon King's gaze shifted slightly and landed on the 13th prince. He said in a deep voice, "However, this dimension is sealed. Although I can't break it, I guess you can't do anything either? It seems that the Black Jiao is really careless. He dares to let a junior like you be sealed in this dimension with me. It seems that you are not that important to the Black Jiao." When he spoke up to hear, a bright light flashed in the Dragon Elephant King's eyes, and he said with a smile, "Why don't you join my clan? I can guarantee that the Black Wyrm will absolutely be unable to harm you at all." The 13th prince smiled and shook his head. The reincarnation disc behind him rotated again and a black light shot towards the Dragon Elephant Demon King. The Dragon Elephant Demon King narrowed his eyes. After all, he was a grand demon king who had been famous for many years. He had also worked together with the Hidden Wolf tribe to harvest the faith of the people of the Frost Mirror grassland. Although he had not reached the limit of what the Tianwu world could bear, he was still much stronger than an ordinary demon king. With a single glance, it was able to discern that this black light was probably not easy to block. especially the resentment and baleful aura contained within the black light. It was something that even it feared like a tiger. Once it was tainted by it, this projection of its would probably collapse in less than 3 breaths of time. If it was even more serious, it might even injure its main body and cripple a few hundred years of bitter cultivation. Boom! The dragon elephant demon king let out a furious roar. Boundless blood chi burst out from his illusory body. In the blink of an eye, the blood chi collided with the black light and was struck down. When it fell to the ground, it had already turned into a pool of viscous liquid. What a powerful black light! The moment they exchanged blows, the dragon elephant demon king made a rough judgment. After all, he had lived for so many years. Even if he did not have enough incense to make a qualitative change in his strength, his experience could not be faked. In a flash, the dragon elephant demon king looked at the reincarnation disc behind the 13th prince with a hint of greed in his eyes. He could tell that the Black Jiao had isolated this part of the world not because he was worried that the grassland wolf tribe would have other backup plans, but because he was worried that the dragon elephant demon king would notice the abnormality of the reincarnation disc and choose to escape. The Black Jiao had evil intentions. At the beginning of this battle, it was hard to tell what the dragon elephant demon king's mentality was. However, when the grassland wolf tribe shamelessly invited the dragon elephant demon king to deal with the 13th prince, the Black Jiao had already made up his mind. No matter what the outcome of this battle was, the Black Jiao would order his subordinates to destroy the grassland wolf tribe. Even if the dragon elephant demon king saw through this and refused to participate in the battle and become an enemy of the Black Jiao, it would not have an easy time. Once the dragon elephant demon king was contaminated by the black light from the reincarnation disc, it would definitely hurt its body. There were even some other mysteries that the dragon elephant demon king had not discovered yet. However, this part of the world was still sealed. Even if he had other ideas, he had to brace himself and finish this battle. Otherwise, if Daria Chi could not hold on any longer, he would be able to escape. However, when he returned to his original body, the grassland werewolf tribe would not let him off easily. Chapter 1093. However, wasn't there a great opportunity in the midst of great danger? The dragon elephant demon king did not know that the stone plate behind the 13th prince was formed by the chi of the netherworld. It was the reincarnation plate that gathered the power of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Only the Azura path and the hungry ghost path were left in the 6 paths. Therefore, the reincarnation plate's power was at most 40%. Otherwise, a mere projection would be destroyed in an instant. However, in the dragon elephant demon king's opinion, the stone plate was definitely a supreme weapon. It was precisely because of the stone plate that Black Jiao was at ease to let the 13th prince fight Daria Chi and himself. However, the 13th prince was only in the advanced Heaven Dipper realm. In the eyes of the dragon elephant demon king, he was nothing. If he could kill the 13th prince here and take the stone plate, the grassland wolf tribe might not be the ones in charge in the Frost Mirror grassland. Boom! A thunderous sound suddenly exploded between the heavens and the earth. The dragon elephant demon king had a unique bloodline and his divine power was unparalleled. With the help of the incense, even if he was just a projection, the power that he could unleash in an instant was extremely terrifying. Ignoring Dariachi's feelings, the dragon elephant demon king stepped on the ground and his body flashed. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the 13th prince. The 13th prince's expression did not change. However, he retreated and the reincarnation plate spun again. Black and red radiance shot out and collided with the dragon elephant demon king. The dragon elephant demon king's blood boiled. He did not dodge or avoid the reincarnation plate. He did not care that his body might be injured. However, his speed was slowed down. Even so, he was still moving towards the 13th prince. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. Every step he took was like a bolt of lightning descending and the mountains and rivers collapsing. Dragon elephant demon king, Haribari has learned a lesson. The 13th prince's expression did not change. He put his palms together and a huge Dharma form that was wrapped in a grey deathly aura appeared behind him. This was similar to the Azura King Dharma body that Lin Yuan summoned during his battle with Lin Yuan. For an existence at the level of the master of the 6 paths, once he summoned his Dharma body, it meant that the following battle would be a battle of life and death. The hungry ghost Dharma body condensed, and the world around Haribari was suddenly dyed with a layer of pitch black color. In the next moment, Haribari suddenly pushed out with both hands, An endless black light shot out from the palms of the Dharma body that was over 100 feet tall. Every ray of black light contained an extremely terrifying devouring power, but in this strange scene, the black hungry ghost power was as dazzling as shooting stars. The illusory image and the Dharma idol were on par with each other. On one side, the power of the hungry ghosts circled around like a meteor shower, constantly corroding the relatively normal world on the other side. On the other side, the power of blood chi erupted and transformed into countless illusory images of dragons and elephants formed by blood chi, which continuously collided with the black meteor. For a short period of time, it seemed that they were evenly matched, with neither side able to do anything to the other. However, the blood demon wolves that were watching the battle had extremely ugly expressions. This was because ever since the world was sealed, the price of summoning the projection of the dragon elephant demon king had been borne by Daria Chi. It seemed that Daria Chi could at most hold on for 3 more breaths of time. This also meant that after 3 breaths of time, the projection of the dragon elephant demon king would definitely collapse, and Daria Chi would definitely die in the sacrificial ceremony. At this stage of the battle, they were already the losers. How lively! A somewhat frivolous voice sounded. Immediately, the reincarnation disc that had also become extremely huge behind the hungry ghost Dharma body bloomed with red light. In the next moment, an illusory figure wearing a blood-red robe appeared. No, it was not blood-red, but the dark brown color of dried blood. This fellow was originally wearing a snow-white robe, but after countless killings, he allowed the blood of the dead to splash on his white robe and dye it this color. This fellow is very dangerous. The blood demon wolf made a judgment almost immediately. After all, from the heaven star border realm onwards, cultivators would have a protective chi around them even when they were unconscious. Unless the other party had the bloodline of some divine beast, otherwise, the powerless blood would not be able to pass through the protective chi and land on the body. Unless the other party wanted to do so and intentionally caused such a situation. Therefore, this person was either a lunatic or a bloodthirsty pervert. Oh! The illusory youth glanced at the hungry ghost Dharma body and smiled. It seems that you are the hungry ghost Dharma body's master? That's great. I thought I would have to be alone for a long time. I didn't expect a new companion to join me so soon. Hungry ghost Dharma body's master. The blood demon wolf's expression changed as it looked at the illusory youth in disbelief. The 13th prince was such a terrifying existence, and this black Jiao actually had another subordinate? No, not just one. The blood chi demonic wolf looked fearfully at the 4 grooves above the stone plate. If it guessed correctly, the 13th prince, the hungry ghost Dharma body's master, corresponded to the gray gemstone, and this illusory youth represented the red gemstone. Even though it could not sense the aura in the sealed world, the blood demon wolf could still feel that the 2 gemstones were extremely dangerous and filled with an ominous aura. And there were actually 4 of such existences? Existences in the heaven star border realm who were not at a disadvantage in the demon king realm? And there were 6 of them. The northern frontier. No, the power behind the black Jiao, how powerful was it? The grassland wolf tribe had also established a divine system. They had originally thought that black Jiao, who had just established the northern frontier divine system, would not be able to compare with them. However, black Jiao himself, together with the 2 northern frontier gods, Batu and Kagura, had already reached a level that was on par with the blood demon wolf tribe. What would happen if he were to find 6 more existences like the 13th prince and the illusory youth? In the entire Tianwu world, other than the Endless Sea and the Elysium Guardians, who else could be a match for the northern frontier? A sense of despair arose inexplicably and instantly enveloped the blood demon wolf. When the blood demon wolf looked at the black Jiao again, a look of reverence appeared on its face. However, no matter how shocked it was, Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes did not waver. Obviously, all of this was within his expectations. Even the possibility that the dragon elephant demon king would come was probably detected by the black Jiao the moment the blood demon wolf proposed the wager. Therefore, the one who accepted the challenge was the 13th prince, the hungry ghost Dharma body's master. Lord Dragon King, we admit defeat. From today onwards, The blood chi demon wolf swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty and said. Chapter 1094. There's no need for that. This king has never been interested in your bet. Lin Yuan suddenly interrupted the blood demon wolf. Then he said slowly, while you're wasting your time with this king, I'm guessing that the Shuangjin dynasty's army has already been defeated by the Great Wall of the northern frontier. However, you don't have to worry. The northern frontier's army won't be able to enter the Frost Mirror grassland so quickly. We won't send out a nameless army. Won't send out a nameless army. The blood demon wolf's expression changed. All of a sudden, it recalled the Black Flood Dragon's inexplicable actions. He had actually disregarded the friendship between the North and the Hengduan Mountains and directly marched into the Hengduan Mountains. He had even ignored the covetous heavenly demons of the Central Plains and the invading Frost Mirror cavalry outside the Great Wall and gathered a large number of troops to wage war against the Monster King's court. From a strategic point of view, Black Jiao's actions were absolutely stupid. After all, no matter how the Hengduan mountain range changed, it was impossible for them to fall out with the northern frontier. After all, the actual ruler of the northern frontier was Black Jiao. Therefore, the Black Flood Dragon's previous actions were as stupid as turning around and punching his ally in the face instead of thinking about how to fight the enemy when facing a powerful enemy. However, the Blood Demon Wolf didn't think so anymore. Although the army of the northern region had suffered some losses in the Hengduan Mountains, both sides ended the farce in an extremely absurd manner before the real battle began. More importantly, due to the concealment of some strange forces, no one knew what had happened in the Hengduan Mountains during that period of time. However, everyone knew that the northern frontier settled the dispute with the Hengduan mountain range and severely injured the demon venerable of the southern wilderness. Not only did they destroy the Yun country's army, but they also uprooted the entire Yun country's imperial court. Even the new king of the Yun country was a young man who was adopted from a side branch of the imperial family instead of the original imperial family. In this chaos, he even destroyed the secret alliance between the demon venerable of the southern wilderness and the Yun country. Driven by greed, the demon venerable of the southern wilderness attacked a large number of the Yun country's territories. The Qing River Empire was trembling, and the Sky Demon army seemed to be sleepwalking. Then, after the northern frontier readied their armaments, their first target would definitely be the Shuangjin dynasty. However, if the northern frontier didn't make a move at this time, who would? The demonic beasts of the Hengduan mountain range. Previously, when the Xinwu dynasty was still around, the Shuangjin dynasty sent troops to loot a burning house and suffered heavy casualties. This time, when they attacked the northern frontier, they suffered heavy casualties under the northern frontier's Great Wall. It could be said that all the tribes on the grassland had no soldiers left except for those who hadn't reached adulthood and were too old to ride horses. If the demonic beast tide broke out at this time, it would definitely be a tragic massacre. At that time, the demonic beasts would wreak havoc on the Frost Mirror grassland, and the northern frontier would send troops to the Shuangjin dynasty to drive the demonic beasts away. What else could be more justifiable than this? They couldn't expect the neighboring Deadwood Empire to send troops to support the Shuangjin dynasty, could they? To put it bluntly, the Deadwood Empire and the Shuangjin dynasty had been enemies for generations. The possibility of them sending troops to support the Shuangjin dynasty was probably not much higher than the possibility of the southern wilderness demonic beast range returning the Yun nation territory to Zhao Yu. In addition, Lin Yuan still had the 13th prince as his trump card. When the demonic beasts were repelled, the 13th prince would step up and inherit the throne. On the surface, the structure of the 7 empires would still be maintained. However, in reality, the northern frontier would be the dominant force and take over the territories of 2 empires. More importantly, the 13th prince was now an important part of Black Flood Dragon's military force. No matter what Black Flood Dragon's original intentions were, he was now Black Flood Dragon's loyal subordinate. Therefore, when the time came, the new Northern Territory God system would be the one to spread across the Frost Mirror Prairie. The legend of the Prairie Wolf God would gradually be replaced or even cut off, and it would directly affect their clan. However, if they were to fight against the northern frontier? Let's not talk about whether they could defeat the northern frontier. Even if they could, so what? Those guys were still alive at that time. It was hard to guarantee that they would not follow the clues and find the secret place of the Grassland Wolf clan. At that time, just like what the Black Jiao said, the entire Grassland Wolf clan would be exterminated. No, Lord Dragon King, you promised. You promised that if the result of the bet was out and we lost, the Prairie Wolf tribe would disband the god system and join your northern region. The Blood Demonic Wolf clan was obviously flustered. However, its panic did not affect Lin Yuan at all. Lin Yuan just tilted his head slightly and said indifferently, "Yes, I did give you a chance. However, When you cheated and planned to bully the Dragon Elephant Demon King, the bet between us no longer existed. Now, you only have two choices. You can either retreat before this king's army arrives at the Frost Mirror grassland, or you can try and see if you are a match for the northern frontier. Black Jiao. The blood demonic wolf clan's voice was almost distorted as it roared. Do you really think we are made of mud? If you insist on starting a war, I think your subordinates in the northern region will definitely suffer heavy casualties. At that time, can you still resist the invasion of the heavenly demons? Can you still compete with the southern wilderness? Will those demonic beasts in the Hengduan Mountains also miss the chance to encroach on the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce? You'd better think it through. Boom. In response to the blood demonic wolf clan's words, Lin Yuan burst forth with a demonic qi as mighty as the Wei River. When this king was still a demonic beast in the Spirit Awakening realm, his opponent was the mountain-shaking ape clan. Later, when this king reached the Wisdom realm, he faced the king crocodile of the Red Flame Swamp. The mountain-blocking city was destroyed by this king, and the 7 border cities of the Shenwu dynasty all fell into the hands of this king. After that, whether it was the Endless Sea, the Sky Demon, or even the Guardian of the Heaven Gate, which one of them made this king afraid? Lin Yuan sneered and glanced at the blood demonic wolf clan from the corner of his eyes. He said mockingly, "This king knows that you are not made of mud, but have you ever seen this king fight against those soft persimmons since he was born? In other words, if you were really made of mud, this king would not be interested in fighting against you." You. The blood demonic wolf clan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He roared, "If that's the case, then there's nothing to talk about. Today, this god must kill you, Black Jiao, who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Then let's fight." Lin Yuan grinned. With a thought, he unsealed the battlefield that was about to decide the outcome of the battle. The willow branch turned into a green light again and directly sealed the space where Lin Yuan and the blood demonic wolf clan were. This king then said with a hideous smile. Previously, this king was still thinking that since the grassland wolf clan had already suppressed themselves to this extent, this king had no reason to fight against you. Chapter 1095. Had he been tricked by the Black Jiao again? The blood chi wolf demon's expression changed slightly. Suddenly, it was filled with endless anger. It suddenly realized what the Black Jiao's actions meant. Previously, they did not seal off the battlefield because they wanted to prove that the Prairie Wolf clan had tampered with the bet. They had invited the Dragon Elephant Demon King, who had been famous for a long time, to deal with a junior like the 13th Prince. After that, they sealed off the battlefield to prevent others from spying on them. They did not want the 13th Prince to be exposed to the world. Especially after the Heaven and Earth seal was lifted, the projection of the young man and the Dragon Elephant Demon King disappeared one after another. Almost at the end, Dariachi died and the projection of the Dragon King Demon King disappeared. On the other hand, the 13th Prince had already retracted his Dharma form. His body was riddled with injuries and it was obvious that he had been beaten into a sorry state. There was no sign of him being on par with Dariachi or even suppressing the Dragon Elephant Demon King. It was obvious that he had been dodging pathetically and had dragged on until Dariachi died before he finally won this round. And now, the Blood Chi Wolf Demon King. He actually took the initiative to declare war on the Black Jiao? Damn it! What a cunning Black Jiao! It wasn't a fool, so it naturally knew what these images meant to those spies. After all, the Tianwu continent was vast and boundless. Even if the various sea demon clans in the Endless Sea were not included, there were still many god systems. The Black Jiao's actions were only to appease the neighboring god systems and cover up the ferocious face of the northern frontier god system. He pushed all the blame to the Prairie Wolf clan. It was as if the Prairie Wolf clan was aggressive and wanted to declare war on the northern frontier. This Black Jiao. His ambition was too big. The Blood Chi Wolf Demon King reacted almost instantly. Its eyes were extremely gloomy. If the Black Jiao went to war with the Prairie Wolf tribe at all costs, it wouldn't be a big deal. But the neighboring god systems would be afraid. If the Black Jiao attacked the other god systems one day, the members of those god systems would gather together, which would cause a lot of trouble. Good, very good. Black Jiao, do you really think you have us under your thumb? The Blood Chi Wolf Demon's eyes flashed. It did not wait for Lin Yuan to make the first move. Its blood chi suddenly burst forth, and the terrifying power instantly destroyed the surrounding ground, flowers and trees. Seeing the blood chi demon wolf attack, Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed. At this moment, he suddenly realized that although the blood chi demon wolf in front of him was not the blood chi demon wolf's real body, the blood chi demon wolf did not cultivate the evil Tao that he had imagined. Instead, it was a method that was very similar to how human experts entered the Tao through martial arts. It mainly relied on the power of its own chi and blood, which could be said to be the most masculine and masculine. The blood chi demon wolf's body was also not refined by the blood chi demon wolf's real body. It was separated from the blood chi demon wolf's real body. Based on this point alone, the threat level of the blood chi demon wolf's real body increased by several levels in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan also focused his mind. The black dragon tail behind him swung, and a large amount of demon power turned into the nether realm black water, which instantly formed the Dharma form of a black dragon. As soon as the Dharma form of the dragon was formed, it directly rushed toward the blood chi demon wolf. In a flash, the nether realm black water collided with the powerful blood chi. Just a moment of contact caused a terrifying explosion. However, the strange thing was that neither Lin Yuan nor the blood chi demon wolf heard any sound. Blood kept flowing out of their mouths and noses. Obviously, they were injured by the aftershock of the explosion. Louder silence. It was easy to imagine how terrifying the power of this collision was. Although the two of them looked equally miserable, the blood chi demon wolf was obviously at a disadvantage. This was because under the shock wave that swept over, even though it had used all its strength, it was still pushed back 5 steps before it could completely dissipate the force. On the other hand, Lin Yuan remained where he was, looking at it mockingly. Bas! The blood chi demon wolf stretched its muscles and bones, and a crisp sound came from its body. At the same time, an even more powerful blood chi exploded. Burning essence blood and exploding with full power? Interesting. Lin Yuan looked at the increasingly powerful blood chi and then looked at the blood chi demon wolf that was gradually becoming wilted and shriveled. For a moment, he was actually a little absent-minded. As expected, the so-called genius and demon were just names that were blown out of proportion. However, those who had climbed to the top step by step could not be underestimated. The blood chi demon wolf was clearly an incarnation of the blood chi of a fake god of the wolf tribe on the grassland, but it was only slightly inferior to him in a head-on collision. If he was facing the real body of the blood chi demon wolf, he would not have had such an advantage. The increasingly powerful blood chi did not collide with Lin Yuan. Instead, it constantly revolved around the gradually weakened blood demon wolf. After about 4 or 5 breaths, the blood demon wolf suddenly looked up to the sky and howled. The blood chi that had spread out actually formed a Dharma form of the blood demon wolf that stood up in front of it. The Dharma form of the blood demon wolf was about 1,000 feet tall. Yes, burning essence blood and exploding with full power. The blood chi demon wolf smiled bitterly and squinted its eyes. Black Jiao, I only have the strength for one more blow. If you can survive this blow, then my real body will be waiting for you on the frost mirror grassland. As soon as it finished speaking, the Dharma form of the blood-red werewolf took a step forward and suddenly came in front of Lin Yuan. It was so fast that Lin Yuan did not even have time to react. He only saw the blood-red wolf claw hitting his abdomen. Puff! The sound of flesh being penetrated was heard. Lin Yuan's eyes widened slightly. Golden blood kept flowing from the corners of his mouth. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. When a snake grew up, it became a python. When a python grew up, it became a flood dragon, and the flood dragon became a dragon. Regardless of whether the statement is reliable or not, Lin Yuan is indeed an existence that evolved from a snake into a flood dragon. Although he can be said to be a different species from the snake, in fact, he still retains some snake characteristics, such as cold-bloodedness, fear of cold, and weakness. To beat a snake, one had to hit it 7 or 3 inches. The 3 inches was the most vulnerable part of a snake's bones, and the 7 inches was the heart. According to the species of snake, the 3 inches and 7 inches were located in different places. Generally speaking, the 3 inches and 7 inches were the 2 most important weaknesses of a snake. The Dharma form of the blood-red werewolf pierced through his scales, flesh, and grabbed his heart with just one blow. F***CK. Lin Yuan cursed in his heart. The thing he was most worried about had happened. After all, he was only in the wild demon realm. When facing a real expert, although he could rely on the system and the power of incense to fight, if he encountered an existence that could kill him in a second, no matter how many tricks he had, he would not be able to use them. Chapter 1096. That's impossible. The blood demon wolf's expression changed abruptly. It was as if it was not Lin Yuan who had been pierced through, but it was itself. As powerful as Lin Yuan was, he could already enter the state of minute subtlety. Even without using his eyes, he could feel all the changes in his body, such as the flow of his blood, the squirming of his muscles. Therefore, he could feel that the Dhamma form of the blood demon wolf had clenched hard, but its target was not his heart. In other words, although it had pierced through the blood demon wolf's heart and reached its claws, it had grabbed nothing. How could that be? Lin Yuan looked at the Dharma form of the blood demon wolf that was gradually fading away in front of him. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. After all, the blood demon wolf was in existence at the level of a false god. It could be said that it was a demon king at the peak level and could use the power of incense to fight. Even in the untainted world, it was not a weakling that could be killed easily. But why would an existence of this level make such a fatal mistake in battle? It had clearly grasped the vital point, but it missed when it was sure to hit the target? Puff! Lin Yuan opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of golden blood. His eyes were gloomy. The feeling of walking in front of the gates of hell was indeed not a good feeling. It wasn't that he was afraid of death. For someone like him who had been through a blood feud in his previous life, death wasn't something that was hard to accept. When the people he cared about him died one by one in front of him, he was already considered a dead man. The only thing he could not accept was that he had the power to take revenge, but he had fallen before he could do so. How could you not have a demon core? The blood demon wolf looked at Lin Yuan in disbelief. It muttered something, but it answered Lin Yuan's doubts. For existences who could use the power of incense, having their hearts crushed was indeed not a serious injury. Take Neza for example. Even Tai could use the lotus roots to create a new body for him. So, even if the body was completely destroyed, let alone one or two vital parts, as long as one was willing to consume enough incense, everything could be regathered. Therefore, although the blood chi wolf demon had pierced through Lin Yuan's heart, it did not choose to crush Lin Yuan's heart. Instead, it wanted to crush Lin Yuan's monster core and destroy his cultivation. After all, in the eyes of the blood demon wolf, Lin Yuan could use the power of incense, and he had killed 2 demon kings before. It never occurred to the blood demon wolf that Lin Yuan was just a demon beast of the wild demon realm. He could only use the power of incense with the help of the system, and he was far from reaching the threshold of a god. However, the problem of the blood chi demon wolf had indeed stumped Lin Yuan. Monster core. When wild beasts absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to gain intelligence and become demon beasts, they would reach the spirit awakening realm. During the process from the spirit awakening realm to the wisdom realm, a demon beast's body would condense an energy ball made of demon power. This energy ball stored all the demon power, and at the same time, it acted as a node, similar to a human's Dantian sea of chi. It could be said that without a monster core, a demon beast could not cultivate. To a demon beast, a monster core was equivalent to a spiritual treasure. During a battle, a demon beast could even spit out its own monster core to injure the enemy. The stronger the demon beast's cultivation, the more powerful its monster core would be. But on the other hand, once the monster core was in the hands of others, it was equivalent to the demon beast's life being controlled by others. With just a thought, the demon beast could completely turn into a beast. In addition to these functions, a monster core was also a great supplement for human cultivators and other demon beasts. Some demon beasts with precious bloodlines could condense a monster core that did not contain any impurities. It could even be directly swallowed, allowing one to obtain at least 70% of the demon beast's cultivation when it was alive, as well as some other benefits. Monster cores were also an indispensable ingredient in the process of refining many extraordinary pills. The main purpose of the existence of the demon slayers was to hunt down the demon beasts in the Hengduan mountain range, reducing the number of demon beasts in each tribe, and reducing the number of demon beasts that would be needed to face in the next beast tide. However, as time passed, the demon slayers had completely turned into hunters. Their main purpose was to hunt down various demon beasts and exchange their flesh, materials, and monster cores for money or resources. Previously, when Mountain Blocking City was still around, there were many demon slayers who coveted Lin Yuan's monster core. However, the problem was that Lin Yuan knew very well that he never had a monster core. Whether it was demon power or Joss flame power, They were all values on the system panel. Only when Lin Yuan needed them could he use the system's power to mobilize them. Lin Yuan suddenly felt that he had never faced this problem head-on before. Moreover, there seemed to be a mysterious force that constantly disturbed him, preventing him from thinking about this problem. Only at this moment, when the Blood Qi Wolf Demon's sneak attack failed, did Lin Yuan finally wake up from his daze. This seemed to be something that did not make sense, but everything was so logical. After all, Lin Yuan had cultivated to this stage, and it could be said that he had never seriously cultivated for a single day. His strength was completely built on killing, constantly killing other living creatures, and obtaining attribute points through the system to strengthen himself. Until now, he seemed to have no idea what a proper cultivation method was. Putting aside the spiritual awakening and wisdom connection realms, Lin Yuan should have sensed that something was wrong when he reached the Mountain Lord realm. What was a Mountain Lord? To be more mysterious, demonic beasts that had reached the Mountain Lord realm and River Lord realm were already existences similar to mountain gods and river gods. Demonic beasts that had reached this realm would usually have their own territory. In this territory, demonic beasts of that realm would be greatly strengthened, and they would even be able to mobilize the power of the rules to a certain extent. Just like the three-eyed ape, who had paid the price of his life to temporarily enter the desolate demon realm. He had almost killed the Lu clan's patriarch with a single punch. As for Lin Yuan himself, although he had territories like the Stoneclaw Forest and the northern frontier, he had never been strengthened, nor had he had the opportunity to feel the power of the rules. He was completely a demonic beast whose physical fitness and demonic power had reached the standard of the Mountain Lord realm. He had none of the special techniques that every realm should have. And now, the desolate demon realm was the same. What was a desolate demon? When demonic beasts come out of the mountains, the world would become a wasteland. This was similar to the birth of the drought demon, a powerful force that could dry land for thousands of miles. However, Lin Yuan still had not grasped the power related to this. All along, he had relied on his powerful attributes to fight with his enemies. At this stage, he had even completely relied on the power of faith, and did not display any of the abilities that a demonic beast of this realm should have. Chapter 1097. Lin Yuan's face was very ugly. He didn't care about the Blood Qi Wolf demon that was slowly dissipating. Because the problem in front of him was too serious. Why didn't he have a demon core? Why was the way of promotion different from other demonic beasts? Was it because the system was playing tricks behind his back? Or was it because he was not a demonic beast, but a human wearing the skin of a demonic beast? Did he not have a demon core from the beginning? Or was his demon core in the hands of the system when it was condensed? He thought that he had gotten rid of the system's control and turned from a pawn to a collaborator. But he didn't expect that the clown was himself. Lin Yuan's eyes were gloomy, and he couldn't speak for a while. Ho, ho, ho! After a long time, the sealed world was gradually unsealed. Lin Yuan, whose wounds had already healed, took a deep breath and flew in the direction of Shunning City, as if nothing had happened. At the same time, far away in the untainted world, Hung Jun, who was still wearing a snow-white robe, slowly opened his eyes. His eyes, which had always been calm and emotionless, suddenly flashed with surprise. He stretched out his right hand and quickly made a few gestures, but he didn't speak for a long time. He just frowned, as if he was thinking about something. Teacher! The Western Buddhists, who were called by Hong Jun, cupped their hands at the same time. Although they were smiling on the surface, they were inexplicably flustered in their hearts. After Hong Jun merged with the Way of Heaven, he had been in charge of the untainted world for countless years. The creatures of the untainted world under his command had conquered thousands of worlds. He had destroyed and annexed many large, medium, and small worlds. Many things had happened in these countless years, and even the untainted world had suffered more than one defeat in the battlefield of thousands of worlds. But there had never been a time when Hong Jun showed joy or anger on his face. The last time Hong Jun showed a strange expression, it was because there was a revelation in the untainted world. Any existence above the golden immortal could sense that the death tribulation of the Tao ancestor had appeared. It was just that no one was sure when this dictator would face the tribulation. This was the second time. The Tao ancestor actually frowned, as if he was thinking about something difficult to understand. As the Western sect that had also existed for countless years and created a huge Western sect, the two Western Buddhists, who had conflicts with Sanqing more than once, were naturally not stupid and slow-witted. When they thought of how the Tao ancestor suddenly called the two of them over and revealed such an expression, they probably did not know how big of a pit was waiting for them ahead. I asked the two of you to choose a capable disciple to go to that small world. Now, do you have anyone in mind? The expression on Hongjuan's face eased slightly, and he once again returned to his emotionless appearance. It was as if he wasn't the one who was frowning and pondering. His voice was as calm as ever, without the slightest emotion. Jie Yin was silent for a moment and said in a deep voice, "Now that the cultivation tribulation is coming, the Xianmen sect and the Buddhism sect are preparing for war. They really can't choose a suitable candidate for the Tao ancestors' request, so they can only take a step back. I have already sent Chen Qi and Zhang Luan to set off. On this trip, they will definitely take the head of the Black Jiao for the Tao ancestor." Taoist Zhuan Ti also took the opportunity to continue the conversation and said, "Although Chen Qi and Zhang Luan are serving the heavenly court, they have guarded the mountain gate for the Buddhism sect for many years. They have done their best to preach and guard the Dharma treasures. This time, they should have this opportunity to serve the Tao ancestor." At this point, Taoist Zhuan Ti's expression was a little awkward. He added, "However, although these two generals have great magical powers, they might not be able to take down the Black Jiao. Therefore, on this trip, these two generals are only attracting the attention of the Black Jiao and those traitors. I have already ordered people to go to the Ren school to invite the Mosquito Daoren under the Grand Supreme Senior Brother. With the help of the Mosquito Daoren, a mere Black Jiao will naturally be easy to capture." When it came to the Mosquito Daoren, the Western Buddhism sect's expression was a little awkward. The Mosquito Daoren was also a great demon that had only emerged during the God Investiture Tribulation. His methods were very strange. When he first appeared in the world, he ate the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit of the Jeschool into an empty shell. Then, he went to the Western Paradise and swallowed 3 of the 12 great lotus seats of the Taoist, causing Buddhism to appear 1,000 years later. After that, although the Western Buddhism sect had taken down the Mosquito Daoren, they were rescued by an unknown powerful cultivator. Other than knowing that the Mosquito Daoren was a ferocious beast, the blood-winged black mosquito, they had gained nothing. Overall, they had suffered a great loss. Even many years later, the Western Buddhism sect only knew that the Mosquito Daoren was a disciple of the Taishang sect. The one who had rescued the Mosquito Daoren was also one of the incarnations of the Taishang sect. However, he had cast a spell to disguise himself. The two of them did not recognize him. In addition, they had no evidence at hand, so they could only suffer the consequences of their own actions. The main reason why they were sure that the Mosquito Daoren was a disciple of the Taishang sect was that the 12 great lotus seats were destroyed, causing Buddhism to appear 1,000 years later. However, the Taishang sect had transformed into Li Er to establish Taoism during this period of time. He even left the legend of the 3,000 miles of purple qi, and the Tao Te Ching, which was known as the ultimate treasure of postnatal merit. No one knew where he went after that, but anyone with a bit of brain could figure it out. After Laozi left the Hanggu Pass, no one knew where he went. However, he suddenly transformed into a Buddha and transformed into Shakyamuni to enlighten the Western region and India. A series of legends were also recognized by later generations of Buddhism to a large extent, treating Laozi as the original Buddha. In a sense, before the journey to the West began, the Western Buddhism sect and the Xianmen sect had not officially started the war. However, the Taishang sect had already given the Western Buddhism sect a fierce blow. Even if Buddhism later flourished, the Taishang sect still had to respect the Taishang sect as the original Buddha. And the start of all these combined blows was none other than the destruction of the 12 great lotus seats by the Mosquito Daoren in the Western Nirvana. In other words, the Taishang sect had almost single-handedly suppressed the Western Buddhism sect and gave them a vicious beating. As a chess piece in the Taishang sect's plan, Mosquito Daoren had played a trick on the Western Buddhism sect. If the Taishang sect had not followed up with a series of operations, they would not have even thought that Mosquito Daoren was a disciple of the Taishang sect. However, this also proved the strength of Mosquito Daoren. With the two generals Hang and Ha attracting the attention of everyone, and Mosquito Daoren secretly waiting for an opportunity to assassinate. If they could not take down the Black Jiao, then even if the Western Buddhism sect sent out their own incarnations, the Black Jiao would still be able to escape unscathed. Good. Hong Jun replied indifferently. There was still no joy or sorrow on his face. Even the Western Buddhism sect, who had thought about this for countless years with Hong Jun, could not tell at this moment whether Hong Jun agreed or disagreed. They could not even guess what Hong Jun thought the success rate of such a lineup going to the Tianwu world. Chapter 1098. Lin Yuan, who had returned to the prince's mansion in the northern frontier, paused for a moment and turned his eyes to the main hall. A young man in a blood-red robe was sitting on the main seat, leisurely sipping a cup of tea. Many servants were busy cleaning and other miscellaneous things around him. The guards of the prince's mansion were also patrolling and guarding. However, no one looked at the young man in the blood-red robe. It was as if no one had seen him at all. However, Lin Yuan only glanced at him and felt a chill crawling up his back. There was no way to describe that kind of chill because his whole body was numb. Even Lin Yuan's posture of staring at the young man in the red robe froze, as if he had turned into a statue. "Nice to meet you, Lin Yuan." The young man in the red robe narrowed his eyes slightly and put down the teacup in his hand. He smiled and said, "I am the virtuous corpse doppelganger of sect leader Tong Tian. You can call me Shangqing Heavenly Lord, or you can call me by my title." Hearing the young man in the red robe call himself, Lin Yuan only felt his scalp tingle. According to the myths and records in his previous life, sect leader Tong Tian disappeared after the investiture of gods. However, as the winner, the Grand Supreme, had an incarnation in the heavenly court. As the loser, sect leader Tong Tian naturally had an incarnation in the heavenly court, and it was Shangqing Heavenly Lord Lingbao. However, there were not many records about Shangqing Heavenly Lord Lingbao, but from the few records that there were, it could be seen that the Jade Emperor Zhang Bairen, who was supported by the Grand Supreme, respected Shangqing Heavenly Lord Lingbao very much, even as much as the Grand Supreme. After all, the investiture of gods was not an ordinary thing. Even if a sage died in the tribulation, his name would be on the list. It was just that the restriction on the sage was not as strong as that on ordinary immortals. The young man in the red robe, who called himself Shangqing Heavenly Lord, was undoubtedly one of the three incarnations of sect leader Tong Tian. Lin Yuan took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then he said in a deep voice, "Sect leader Tongtian, your name is like thunder in my ears. It's my honor to have you visit my humble abode." Shangqing Heavenly Lord squinted his eyes and sized up Lin Yuan. Suddenly, he laughed and said, "I have always believed in education without discrimination. If you were born in the untainted land, you would be the one who carried the tripod of the Order of Jie. But it's fine now. You are not ambitious, but you are born with pride. You will never submit to others and will do anything to achieve your goal. If you enter the Order of Jie, no matter you or I, we will not be at ease." When he spoke up to hear, there seemed to be a look of regret in his eyes, but it was only for an instant, and he quickly said seriously, "I didn't come here to demonstrate my strength to you or anything else. I just came to give you a reminder. In a few days, there will probably be experts from the primeval world descending here. I don't need to explain their purpose to you, right?" Lin Yuan thought for a moment and his face darkened. He said, "Thank you for your reminder, Senior. Chen Qi, Zhang Luan of the Western Order." Well, just these two names may be hard for you to understand. But if I were to say the two generals Hang and Ha, you should know who they are, right? This time, the two generals Hang and Ha will attract your attention from the front, but the one in the dark is the one who will kill you. You have to be careful. Even the Western Order has suffered losses from him. Haha, I'm going. Shangqing Heavenly Lord laughed and his body burst like a bubble, dissipating into nothingness. Only Lin Yuan was left standing in the same place with a solemn face. For a moment, hundreds of thoughts were running through his mind. The Western Order was notorious in Lin Yuan's eyes. What these two guys did in the untainted land was enough to be called the most shameless. Usually, they were the ones who suffered losses from others. Suddenly, Lin Yuan guessed who they had suffered losses from, but Lin Yuan had no clue at all. Shangqing Heavenly Lord obviously came with bad intentions. He came here to tell Lin Yuan that an expert from the untainted land would come to the Tianwu world to kill him in the near future. He even pointed out that the two generals Hang and Ha were just a cover on the surface. The real killer was someone else in the dark, but he didn't tell Lin Yuan the real identity of the killer. At that time, Lin Yuan would be apprehensive about the killer in the dark. Maybe he would be killed by the two generals Hang and Ha before the other party could make a move. Although the two generals Hang and Ha appeared as funny figures in most myths and legends, Even during the time of King Wu's conquest of the Zhou dynasty, the two of them belonged to different camps. Their mounts, appearances, secret techniques, and martial arts were almost the same. They were in a deadlock and both of them used the soul-sucking secret technique. In the end, both of them fell from their horses at the same time and were rescued by their subordinates. Even those who were watching the battle were amused. But back to the main topic, the two generals Hang and Ha were definitely the strongest in the untainted land. Take Taoist Red Cloud and Demon Master Kuan Peng as an example. Because Taoist Red Cloud beat Kuan Peng at his own game, Demon Master Kuan Peng also lost his sage position. After that, he wanted to kill Taoist Red Cloud, but he only destroyed Taoist Red Cloud's physical body. Although he had the protection of the 9-9 Red Cloud soul-scattering gourd, it could be seen that most of the creatures in the untainted land only destroyed the physical body and couldn't hurt the primordial spirit. However, if the primordial spirit wasn't destroyed, it could be reincarnated. But the two generals Hang and Ha, who were the mountain guardians of the Western sect, used the soul-sucking secret technique. They were definitely not ordinary people when they attacked. After all, the two generals of the Western sect had done many shameless things. No one knew how many people they had cheated to join the Western sect. Other than that, they had also cheated countless treasures to fill the Western sect's storehouse. The fact that the two generals Hang and Ha could be conferred as the mountain guardians of the Western sect after their death, and were responsible for guarding the treasures proved their terrifying strength. Taking a step back, an existence who could make the two generals Hang and Ha cover for him while he hid in the dark and waited for an opportunity to kill was probably more difficult to deal with than the two generals Hang and Ha. Either this guy was extremely good at assassination and instant killing, or his strength was above that of the two generals Hang and Ha. It seemed that the last time Hongjuan's projection descended, he was attacked by the system and the will of the world. He had suffered a lot, but he also saw the drawbacks of this protection. If the attacker's strength was similar to that of Lin Yuan, then neither the system nor the will of the world would attack. Only the sudden attack of an existence like Hongjun, whose strength was far above that of Lin Yuan, could make the two bosses activate and fight. However, he would deal with whatever came his way. Since the untainted land had attacked, there was naturally no reason for him to sit and wait for death. Lin Yuan thought for a moment, then he rose again and flew in the direction of the endless sea. Although he was the emperor of the underworld in the Tianwu world, after all, he had not formed the underworld. He was not familiar with the secret techniques that targeted the soul. Instead of directly fighting the two generals Hang and Ha, it was better to find someone to borrow a treasure to fight. Of course, it would be better if he could ask that person to attack directly. Anyway, in the untainted land, borrowing treasures to fight the enemy or asking for help could be said to be basic. He just did not know how much he would have to pay this time to satisfy that person's appetite. Chapter 1099. After leaving the prince's mansion in the northern frontier, Shangqing Heavenly Lord's face suddenly darkened. Of course, he knew who was responsible for the assassination of Lin Yuan. Strictly speaking, there was still a deep hatred between him and the assassin. During the investiture of God's tribulation, the old man who received the guide subdued the saintess of Turtle Spirit and wanted to persuade her to join the Western religious sect. However, the saintess of Turtle Spirit was one of the 4 disciples of Tong Tian. Although she was impatient and impulsive, she was straightforward and was favored by Tong Tian. She could be considered loyal to the Jie sect and was completely different from the traitor Ding Guangxian. After all, when Guang Chengzi visited the Aquamarine Palace 3 times and intended to stir up a dispute, his impatient disciple did not restrain herself and attacked. Not only was she defeated by the flipping sky seal and was beaten out of her original form, she also implicated a group of fellow disciples. It could be said that a large part of the reason why the Jie sect faced the tribulation was because of the impulsiveness of the saintess of Turtle Spirit. Therefore, Tong Tian, who was furious, expelled the saintess of Turtle Spirit from the palace and did not allow her to enter the palace to listen to lectures. However, in the 2 battles of the Immortal Slaying Formation and the Myriad Immortal Formation, the saintess of Turtle Spirit still followed Tong Tian without hesitation. In the end, she was defeated by Zhu Lu's son in the Myriad Immortal Formation. When she chased to the west, she met the shameless old man who received the guide who bullied the weak. Finally, she was killed by Mosquito Daoren and became an empty shell. Although he was annoyed by the impulsiveness of the saintess of Turtle Spirit, Tong Tian still felt guilty for this disciple. Mosquito Daoren. Shangqing Heavenly Lord's eyes flashed with anger as he gently chewed on the name. He murmured, "You must not die in the hands of the Black Jiao so easily. I still have a score to settle with you." At the same time in the untainted world. Above the heavenly court, outside the 33rd heaven, a young man in a blood-red robe and black shirt knelt outside the Tushita Palace with a solemn expression. The young man looked to be at most 26 or 27 years old. His skin was fair, his face was like jade, and his facial features could be considered exquisite. However, he had an extremely long nose, which made his facial features look extremely out of place, greatly destroying the first impression he gave others. He was not famous in the untainted land, but his achievements were amazing. Back then, the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit defeated several golden immortals of Kunlun in the 10,000 Immortals formation. Even the 12 golden immortals of the Chan sect, Ju Lu Sun, was defeated by him and was chased by the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit all the way to the west. Although it was Jie Yin who suppressed the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit still died in his hands. Don't think that it was easy to kill the suppressed Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit. It should be known that the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit was originally a 10,000-year-old spirit turtle. She inherited the word Songjie created, and when the turtle script had the shape of wings, she turned into a human form. She could be said to be a powerful figure in the period of the Yan Emperor. She also inherited a part of the merit and luck. After killing the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, he went to the Western Paradise under the order of his teacher and bit the 12-grade lotus seed of Jie Yin, causing it to become a 9-grade lotus seed. This directly caused the prosperity of Buddhism to be delayed by 1,000 years, giving his teacher the opportunity and time to transform into a Buddha. After that, he followed his teacher's order and had been cultivating in seclusion, never leaving his own cave. That was why there were few mosquito Daoren in the world. However, he had never expected that the old bastard would be so shameless. In order to take revenge, he actually recommended him to Hongjun and asked him to go to the small Kiliacosm to assassinate the Black Jiao. He even did not hesitate to push out the 2 mountain gods of Shur sect to help him and cut off his retreat. It could be said that it was an opportunity for Generals Hang and Ha to go to the small Kiliacosm to kill the Black Jiao. Although Generals Hang and Ha belonged to 2 camps during the period of King Wu's attack, they were under the jurisdiction of the Western sect after they became gods. They had always been in charge of guarding the Western sect and had never offended any mighty figures or people with deep foundations. As long as they were not killed by the Black Jiao on this trip, if the matter failed, they could blame it on him for the assassination. If the matter succeeded, they would naturally have a share of the credit. On the other hand, although his teacher was still a heavenly sage in the untainted world, it was true that Sanqing joined hands to plot against Hongjun. Although Tong Tian had left the untainted world for many years, he was still in contact with his teacher and uncle Master Yuanshi. Therefore, Mosquito Daoren naturally knew that the good corpse clone of Tong Tian, Lord Shangqing, was in that small Kiliacosm at the moment. This also meant that it was an opportunity for others to do this task. No matter whether they succeeded or failed, they would be rewarded by the Tao ancestor. However, if he went to that small Kiliacosm, once he fell into the hands of Lord Shangqing, he would really be unable to live or die. In the entire untainted world, there was really no one who was more protective than Tong Tian. Although Sanqing was acting in the war between the 3 sects, Tong Tian's intention to stand up for his disciple could not be faked at all. Although the matter between the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit and Guang Qingzi had caused the entire Jie sect to be tainted with the aura of calamity, the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit was loyal to Tong Tian. Even the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit was suppressed by Taoist Jie Yin because Tong Tian shouted in the 10,000 Immortals formation, "Quickly bring me Ju Lu Sun." Even when facing a mighty figure like Taoist Jie Yin, who was on the same level as Grandmaster Tong Tian, the goddess of Turtle Spirit did not retreat at all. She loyally carried out Grandmaster Tong Tian's orders, which led to the disaster later. According to his understanding of Tong Tian, if he fell into his hands, even his teacher could not get him back. Therefore, Mosquito Doran's only purpose in coming to the Tushita Palace was to ask his teacher to protect him on account of his loyalty to his teacher, so that he would not go to that small Kiliacosm where there was no chance of survival. However, what made him despair was that he had been kneeling outside the Tushita Palace for 12 hours. Corresponding to the time in the mortal world, he could be said to have been kneeling here for a year, but his teacher had no intention of showing up. The gate of the Tushita Palace was tightly shut, and he could not even see a Taoist child. It was clear that he had acquiesced in this matter. Mosquito Daoren lamented in his heart. Suddenly he kowtowed twice and said in a sorrowful voice, "I know that teacher is in a difficult position. Since teacher is unwilling to show up, I will not force you. After this farewell, I don't know if I will still have the fate to serve teacher. I only hope that teacher can fulfill his wish as soon as possible. I will leave now." After Mosquito Daoren finished kowtowing and stood up, he turned into a blood-winged black mosquito and flew into the sky. Only then did a faint sigh come from the Tushita Palace. Karma is the most difficult thing in the world to return. The cause of the past is the effect of today. So what if you can avoid this calamity? It is the end of the calamity. A calm voice rang out. It seemed to have penetrated time and space and directly exploded in Mosquito Daoren's mind. Chapter 1100. Returning to the timeline of the Tianwu world. It had been 3 months since he met the Shangqing Sky Lord. In these 3 months, Lin Yuan had been paying attention to the movements of the Gate of Heaven. However, the strange thing was that other than the cultivators and demonic beasts guarding the Gate of Heaven, Lin Yuan's eye of God could not see anything strange at all. Not to mention the experts from the Eldritch world, even the Sky Demon, who had been continuously entering the Tianwu world, could not be seen. This did not make sense and was impossible. It was still unknown whether the 2 fox demons had entered the Tianwu world through the Gate of Heaven. However, they were backed by the patriarch Yang Mei, who had attained the great Tao of space. He was a fierce man who could fight head-on with Hong Jun, who had merged with the heavenly Tao. If such an existence wanted to open a crack in space and send in 2 demonic king-level fox demons, it would be extremely easy. However, other than the patriarch Yang Mei, there were not many existences in the Eldritch world who could play with space to perfection. Especially now that the patriarch Yang Mei was in the Sea of Bitterness outside the Gate of Heaven. Who would dare to play with space in front of the patriarch Yang Mei and send in Generals Hang, Ha, and the unknown assassin? Whether it was Generals Hang, Ha, or the assassin, if they wanted to enter the Tianwu world, the only way was through the Gate of Heaven. To put it bluntly, if they had obediently entered the Heaven Martial world through the Gate of Heaven, it would have been fine. Although old ancestor Yang Mei and Hong Jun were not on good terms, he would still give Hong Jun some face. He would not have killed a few juniors. However, if they thought the patriarch Yang Mei was a fool and wanted to enter the Tianwu world through the Gate of Heaven, then the patriarch Yang Mei did not even need to do anything. He just needed to casually tamper with the space, and Generals Hang, Ha, and the assassin would not even know how they died. However, it had already been 3 months. There was no movement at all. It couldn't be that the Shangqing Heavenly Lord was so bored that he was making fun of him, right? However, regardless of whether Generals Hang, Ha, and the assassin would come or not, today was an important day. The youths who had been gathered by Lin Yuan to impart the Sutra of all living beings and then sent to the various worlds for training would return today. Although he could sense the actions of these youths through the universal scripture, Lin Yuan had never done so, nor did he give them any mission objectives. He only borrowed the power of the system to send them to the myriad worlds to train for 3 months, and when the time was up, he would bring them back through the system. As for how many of them he would be able to return, it was still unknown. The myriad worlds were not some blessed enclave. Lin Yuan wasn't the master god of the infinite style, nor was he the director of an orphanage. He couldn't decide which world these youths would go to, nor could he give them any cheat. The only thing he could give them was a cultivation method of the all-being scripture that suited them. However, with a suitable cultivation method, after going to the myriad worlds, it didn't mean that they would definitely become cultivators. The myriad worlds was just a general term. Other than the Tianwu world and the chaotic world, there was also the world of his previous life that had already entered the age of Dharma's end. There wasn't the slightest bit of spiritual chi between heaven and earth, and there were also worlds that were completely unsuitable for life forms to live in. To put it bluntly, many of these youths who were sent to the myriad worlds were unlucky, and died as soon as they arrived in other worlds. There were also some who wasted 3 whole months without any progress in their cultivation, and were instead assimilated by the age of Dharma's end, causing their aptitude to be damaged. A milky white screen of light unfolded in front of him. One by one, the youths who seemed familiar stepped out of it. After the screen of light dissipated, Lin Yuan confirmed that out of the 217 youths, only 140 had returned safely. Of these 140 youths, another 30 had been affected by the age of Dharma's end. Originally, they could be considered to have excellent aptitude, but now, they could only be described as mediocre. However, other than these unlucky youths, there were also a few youths who made Lin Yuan's eyes light up. One of them was dressed like a Taoist, but from his cloth to his Taoist robe, everything was pitch black. Lin Yuan couldn't sense the aura of a living person from his body, but the netherworld energy in his body was very close to him. It was very clear that this youth had obtained some ghost Tao inheritance. If he didn't die unexpectedly, once the world was repaired, he would become the Tianwu world's first batch of underworld gods. One of them was dressed in gray monk robes. His face still had a bit of childishness, but it was completely different from the white and clean appearance in Lin Yuan's memories. Now, his skin was a healthy bronze color. Even from a distance, Lin Yuan could feel the powerful qi and blood on his body. It was clear that he had entered a high cultivation world and obtained some Buddhist inheritance, cultivating some Vajra unbreakable cultivation method. There was also a youth who was dressed similarly to when he had left, but his aura had clearly changed. Furthermore, his body was filled with a faint medicinal fragrance. On his back was a small bag with a golden pill furnace. It seemed that he had obtained some kind of pill Tao inheritance. Just like how the all-life scripture would present different contents to different individuals, even the all-life scripture that had been recorded down would change according to the cultivator. Once this mystical cultivation technique was cultivated, it would constantly adjust itself, changing its contents according to the growth of the host. It would never be outdated no matter what time it was. Lin Yuan's gaze swept across these 140 youths, and he said in a deep voice, "Although I don't know what you have experienced during this period of time, the fact that you are able to come back alive means that this period of training has been successful. Next, you will have about a month's holiday. You can do whatever you want to do. After a month, gather here again, and I will start the second training for you. I hope that next time, I will still be able to see each and every one of you." At this point, he turned his gaze to Kagura, who was waiting at the side, and said indifferently, "Choose a substitute from the reserve force to receive my inheritance. Replenish the 217 people. After a month, we will set off together with them." "Yes." Kagura lowered her head slightly and responded in a deep voice. However, Lin Yuan slowly turned his head and cast his gaze in the direction of the divine gate. He smiled coldly and said, "You're finally here. I thought that person was really using me to make fun of me." At this point, he turned his head to look at the youths who had returned, and changed the topic. "Coming at the right time is better than coming at the right time. All of you follow me. I will let you see how the realm that you will at least reach in the future fights." Chapter 1101. On the other side. Generals Hang and Ha, who had just arrived in the martial heaven realm, had gloomy expressions. They looked at the heaven gate guardians around them and were at a loss. The two sides were in a strange stalemate. After all, even though they knew beforehand that this was a minor world, they'd never imagined that the environment here would be so bad. The spirit energy of the heavens and the earth was already scarce to a certain extent. They didn't even doubt that if they were to cultivate in this world for half a year, their cultivations would probably regress instead of advancing. Moreover, why were the cultivators of this world so strange? Generals Hang and Ha had also suppressed their cultivation to the limits of the Tianwu world. The surrounding monsters and cultivators were more or less at the same level, but if they really fought, they would be able to easily kill most of them without using a soul-sucking secret technique. But the problem was, they were panicking. The universe was a boundless battlefield. Starting from the middle thousand realms, countless experts went on expeditions to other realms. The various realms and the bitter sea were all battlefields. However, the carrying capacity of a minor dimension was limited. The resources were also limited. Therefore, they weren't disturbed. Even if someone found a minor dimension, they would only leave a coordinate and let it grow. After all, a fruit that wasn't ripe wasn't delicious. But this minor dimension, it obviously didn't participate in the war of the universe, but it was hostile to cultivators from other realms. This was something that they didn't expect before coming here. A minor dimension resisting cultivators from other realms? What a joke! Even in the cruel 10,000 realm battlefield, the flames of war wouldn't be brought to a minor dimension. If powerful beings from other realms went to a minor dimension, they would bring a lot of knowledge, technology, cultivation methods, seeds, precious beast bloodlines and so on. For the powerful life forms from other worlds, the The small Kiliacosm couldn't wait to welcome them. How could it be like now? They didn't even say a word, and directly surrounded him with covetous eyes, as if they wanted to start a fight immediately. But even if they didn't agree, they should at least say something. The two of them were natives of the great desolate realm. Even if they could imitate and translate languages, they still needed the other party to speak first before they could use it. The atmosphere was getting heavier and heavier. At this time, a muffled voice was heard. It was like a thunderclap in a clear sky. Everyone was startled and shivered. "Seniors, please take a rest. These two are here to cause trouble for me. I'll take care of them." Lin Yuan's voice came from the void. He stared at Generals Hang and Ha with his heterochromatic eyes. He slowly switched from the common language of the Tianwu world to the ancient Chinese of his previous world, which he had not used for a long time. He said, "I didn't expect that I would be able to alarm Generals Chen Qi and Zheng Luan to come together. Can I have a word with you?" "Humph. Ha." Generals Hang and Ha didn't know how Lin Yuan knew their names and origins, but when they saw their target swaggering in front of them, their bodies reacted faster than their minds. They used the soul-sucking mystic skill almost at the same time. Obviously, they planned to destroy Lin Yuan's soul the moment he appeared. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly. When he saw the yellow and white qi coming towards him, he didn't look surprised at all. He just shook his head slightly. A red light appeared out of nowhere and turned into a red gourd. The moment it appeared, it grew with the wind. In the blink of an eye, it became a huge gourd more than 100 feet wide. Then, endless red sand flew out of the gourd and collided with the yellow and white qi. When Generals Hang and Ha saw the red gourd, their expressions changed and they panicked. They were existences that were adept at attacking the soul to begin with, so they naturally wouldn't fail to recognize this infamous connate spirit treasure. When the untainted world was created, there was a primordial spiritual root gourd vine at the foot of Mount Buzhou. There were 7 primordial spiritual treasures: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. These 7 primordial spiritual treasures were refined into several famous treasures. They were Taoist Red Cloud's soul-dispersing gourd, Taoist Lu Ya's immortal-killing flying dagger, Goddess Nuo's demon-summoning gourd, and Laozi's purple gold gourd. The other 3 gourds were not famous, but they were obtained by sect leader Tong Tian, Heavenly Lord Yuanshi, and Taoist Hong Jun respectively. Moreover, the primordial spiritual root gourd vine was used to create humans by Goddess Nuo. In the end, it turned into a treasure of merit. The 7 gourds it produced naturally shared some of the merit power, making them more powerful. Although Goddess Nuo was a great saint of the demon clan, she was also the holy mother of the human clan. The reason why she could command all the demons in the world was mainly because of the demon-summoning gourd in her hand. As for Taoist Lu Ya's immortal-killing flying dagger, it was even more outrageous. When he said, "Treasure, please turn around," it could be said that except for a few people, all the others who were targeted by Lu Ya were doomed to die. However, among the 7 gourds, the most vicious one was Taoist Red Cloud's soul-dispersing gourd. Without injecting magic power into it, this red gourd looked only 3 feet and 3 inches in size, but it contained an endless amount of soul-dispersing red sand. Once the soul-dispersing gourd was used, the red sand would cover the sky and earth. Anyone who touched it would be destroyed in body and soul under the golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven. They would not even be able to enter the reincarnation cycle. What surprised Generals Hang and Ha the most was that they recognized this treasure. After all, Taoist Red Cloud's physical body had been destroyed by the demon master Kuan Peng. Even if he could refine it again after countless years, his skills would definitely be reduced to less than 10%. This soul-dispersing gourd could be said to be Taoist Red Cloud's lifeblood. Without the protection of this treasure, Taoist Red Cloud would definitely be doomed if he was targeted by a powerful enemy. How did this Black Jiao get this soul-dispersing gourd? Did he borrow it? Or, was Taoist Red Cloud dead? Humph. Ha. Generals Hang and Ha continued to use the soul-absorbing mystic technique, blasting out yellow and white qi to fight against the soul-dispersing red sand. They had no intention of retreating. However, this is also normal. After all, they are all big shots who have been famous for many years, and they are good at hurting people's souls. If the one who used the 99 soul-scattering gourd here was Red Cloud, they might be a little afraid. However, if the opponent was Lin Yuan, they would never admit defeat so easily. More importantly, Lin Yuan squinted his eyes slightly and opened his eye of God, paying attention to every movement around him. He did not dare to be careless. After all, the mysterious assassin had not shown up yet. Now that he had used the soul-dispersing gourd to fight with Generals Hang and Ha, it would be difficult to find a more suitable opportunity to assassinate him. If the assassin was here, he would definitely not miss this opportunity. Chapter 1102. Generals Hang and Ha looked at each other and continued to use the soul-sucking secret technique, but their eyes were more serious than before. After all, they came from the great thousand worlds of the primitive era. Suddenly coming to a small thousand world with such a lack of spiritual qi, they were not used to it. The difference in the density of spiritual qi between the two worlds was so great that it even affected their strength to a certain extent. The efficiency of their spiritual qi recovery was so low that it made their hair stand on end. How great was the gap between them? For example, if the least talented human in the Tianwu world were to come to the primitive era, they would be able to step onto the path of cultivation with just a few breaths. The most annoying thing was that Generals Hang and Ha did not dare to wantonly absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in this small thousand world. Even if their cultivation method could convert all the spiritual qi of heaven and earth into spiritual qi, there was a huge difference between converting immortal qi and converting air. If they were to freely absorb the spiritual qi of Tianwu world, it was hard to say whether they could quickly recover their spiritual qi, but it was certain that it would not be long before the spiritual qi that they had painstakingly cultivated would be contaminated by the inferior spiritual qi. In the worst-case scenario, it could even harm their foundation. In the worst-case scenario, it would cost them thousands of years of cultivation. But Black Jiao was different. This Black Jiao had grown up in such a small thousand world. The quality of his spiritual qi was inferior, but it did not need to be that high to use spiritual qi to fight against enemies. After all, spiritual qi could strengthen spiritual qi to a certain extent, but spiritual qi always had a basic lower limit. The Khanate gourd was nurtured by the Khanate gourd vine, and it had been nurtured by an expert like Taoist Red Cloud for countless years. Even if its lower limit was low, how low could it be? Most importantly, the ninefold soul scatter gourd was a precious treasure that targeted the soul as well, and it was on par with their soul assimilation secret techniques in essence. If it was only the two of them fighting the Black WYRM, then they would sooner or later be completely exhausted of their energy and be at the mercy of the Black WYRM. Fortunately, in 2 breaths of time, Lin Yuan suddenly felt a gust of wind coming from behind him. Almost without thinking, he swung his flood dragon body and moved nearly 1,000 meters forward. Only now did Generals Hang and Ha's expressions gradually stiffen. Although they didn't manage to get the upper hand against the Black Jiao in the beginning, they were only here to provide cover. There was no need for them to fight to the death with the Black Jiao. As long as they could keep the Black Jiao here and ensure that the Black Jiao's attention was focused on them, their mission would be considered complete. Whether they could kill the Black Jiao or not depended on the mysterious mosquito Daoran. But the question was, why was it like this? Why did Black Jiao seem to have known about Mosquito Doran's existence and avoided it in advance? And during this process, Black Jiao didn't relax his control of the 99 soul-dissipating gourd at all. Even though he was multitasking, he was still able to suppress the two brothers. This undoubtedly showed that Black Jiao wasn't serious at all. Fellow Taoist mosquito, the 99 soul-dissipating gourd is a primordial spiritual treasure with the power of merit. Even if the Black Jiao is extraordinarily talented, he can't control the magic treasure and use divine sense at the same time. We'll hold him back. You can go all out to show off your power. Chen Qi's eyes flashed coldly. He raised his hands, took out the demon-slaying pestle that had accompanied him for many years, and smashed it fiercely at the 99 soul-dissipating gourd in mid-air. After all, Zhang Luan was one of the generals Hang and Ha. Although they belonged to different camps at the beginning, they were both worshipped as the mountain guardians of the Western sect after they became gods. In addition, their divine sense and cultivation methods were similar. Over the years, they lived and ate together, and their relationship was even deeper than that of blood-related brothers. Even if they didn't communicate when they fought together, they were in a state of tacit understanding. Therefore, the moment Chen Qi spoke, Zhang Luan had already begun to increase the output of his Dharma power. The white smoke coming out of his nose became thicker and thicker. He was going to fight the primordial spiritual treasure, the 99 soul-dissipating gourd, by himself. The Western sect has always been shameless. It's normal for the three of you to fight against one. Lin Yuan sneered while dodging the danger that could not be seen with the naked eye, but he could feel the danger. In the untainted land, there were many cultivators who put their cultivation on magic treasures. Even many powerful figures did so. Most of them had acquired spiritual treasures or even self-refined magic treasures. But the 99 soul dissipating gourd was different. First, it was a primordial spiritual treasure stained with the power of merits. If Lin Yuan wanted to control it freely, he had to constantly pour in a large amount of demonic power to control it. Under such circumstances, Lin Yuan had to consider whether his demonic power was sufficient when he wanted to use some divine sense and magic arts, let alone control many magic treasures. After all, he was not so extravagant as to waste the power of incense here. Second, the 99 soul dissipating gourd was originally Taoist Red Cloud's treasure. As mentioned before, most treasures had inhibition formations. The more inhibition formations were refined, the more power could be exerted. However, the 99 soul dissipating gourd was borrowed. Lin Yuan couldn't refine all the inhibition formations on it, could he? Even if he could do it, Taoist Red Cloud would not agree to it. After all, refining all the seals was equivalent to erasing Taoist Red Cloud's ownership of the connate spiritual treasure. Therefore, even at his limit, he could only refine 40% of the seals at most. What was more, Lin Yuan couldn't do that. How could he refine a primordial spiritual treasure in 3 months? Did Taoist Red Cloud really think he was on the same level as Hongjun? Not to mention the 99 soul dissipating gourd, which was Taoist Red Cloud's personal treasure. Even a post-celestial spiritual treasure would need to be nurtured for countless years. Unless one had the strength to crush the opponent, refining a treasure would take at least 80 to 100 years. Now, there was an expert hiding in the dark who kept attacking him. He must have known that Chen Qi didn't have the strength to fight back. Moreover, Zhang Luan was attacking the 99 soul dissipating gourd without caring about the consumption of energy. This meant that Lin Yuan couldn't relax his control over the 99 soul dissipating gourd. Otherwise, he would lose this primordial spiritual treasure that could suppress Chen Qi and Zhang Luan. He wasn't confident that he could deal with their soul-absorbing secret skill. At this moment, Chen Qi stopped using the secret skill and took out the demon-slaying pestle. He didn't want Zhang Luan to bear all the pressure. Instead, he wanted to attack the 99 soul dissipating gourd directly, in an attempt to destroy or knock down this primordial spiritual treasure. It was a standard 3-on-1 battle. Moreover, they had Lin Yuan under control. He could only watch anxiously but couldn't do anything about it. Apart from the Western sect, there weren't many who dared to use such a shameless way of fighting. After all, the cultivators of the Celestial Sect of Wonders also cared about their reputation. Chapter 1103. Fortunately, the one who controls the 99 soul scattering gourd has never been me. Lin Yuan's joking voice suddenly sounded. At the same time, the flood dragon's tail swung fiercely. Endless black water from the netherworld sprayed out and turned into a roaring black flood dragon. It kept biting the void, intending to force out the assassin who was hiding in the dark to attack him. Mosquito Daoran, who was hiding in the void, was shocked. Although he did not know why the Black Jiao could locate him, he still subconsciously retreated in the face of the Black Jiao formed by the liquid with dense netherworld aura. As he retreated, he immediately revealed his figure from the void. Very few people knew that Mosquito Daoran actually cultivated the Great Way of Space. Otherwise, Mosquito Daoran would not have been able to hide beside White Lotus Boy without being discovered by Taoist Jie Yin. After killing the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, he would not have been able to fly to the Western Paradise and absorb the level 3 Dharma power of the 12 Lotus Seats. After all, Taoist Jie Yin and Taoist Juanti were heavenly way sages. Except for Tao ancestor Hongjun, who was in harmony with the way of heaven, they could almost be said to be invincible. Even if a few existences whose fighting capacity was not inferior to theirs appeared, they could not be compared with the invincible sages. If they really made a deadly enemy, they would be tortured to death sooner or later. However, except for some foreign species, heavenly way sages could be said to be supreme in all aspects in untainted land. If Mosquito Daoran did not cultivate the Great Way of Space, not to mention hiding his figure, his basic speed would be far inferior to that of heavenly way sages. In the web novels of Lin Yuan's previous life, there was a very reasonable sentence. If space does not appear, time is king. Although 3,000 of the 3,000 grandaos was only a quantifier to describe a large number of grandaos and not an exact number, these grandaos still had their differences. For example, the grandaos of space, time, fate, karma, and so on were definitely much stronger than the basic grandaos of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Of course, the specific strength depended on the user. For example, Pan Gu's Great Tao of Strength was not as powerful as the Great Tao of Time and Space. However, Pan Gu's Great Tao of Strength was deep enough to shatter any time and space with a single punch. Otherwise, the prehistorical world would not have become a great world as soon as it was created. If the basic Great Taos of the 5 elements were used well, they could also crush the more powerful Great Taos. After all, the foundation was the foundation, but the more powerful Great Taos were not so easy to comprehend. The prehistorical world had never lacked talented people, and there were also many people who practiced top Great Taos. However, the difference between walking 1 meter and walking 2 meters was like heaven and earth. There were definitely many experts who practiced the Great Tao of time and space in the prehistorical world, but most of them were like brothers among brothers. Mosquito Daorin believed that his attainments in the Great Tao of space were not bad. In the entire prehistorical world, only Patriarch Yang Mei, an extremely special existence, could surpass him in the Great Tao of space. But this Black Jiao, Mosquito Daorin could not find the slightest aura of the Great Tao of space. This Black Jiao had not even comprehended its own Tao. Even if it wanted to prove its own Great Tao in the future, it would basically be in the direction of the Netherworld or the Ghost Tao. Under such circumstances, it was simply too strange for it to be able to discover him. Although Lin Yuan did not know the doubts in Mosquito Daorin's heart, even if he knew, he would not take it seriously. There was a path to heaven, but you did not take it, and there was no door to hell? Of all the places to play with the Great Tao of space, why did you come to the Tianwu world to show off your existence? The ancestors who played with the Great Tao of space in the prehistorical world were in the Sea of Misery outside the Heavenly Gate. He still had the willow branch that Patriarch Yang Mei had given him. Even if he could not comprehend the Great Tao of space in the future, ordinary Great Tao of space cultivators would not be able to hide in front of him. The dark water Black Jiao swung its tail again. Boom! The void shattered, and heaven and earth shook. Mosquito Daorin's expression changed again, and he retreated again and again. The problem he was facing now was equally awkward. After all, he cultivated the Great Tao of space, and his main divine powers relied on the Great Tao of space to perform. However, he did not know why the Black Jiao could not only accurately locate his position, but even the divine powers that he stored in the void that could break space at any time were as transparent as if they were transparent. Before he used the divine powers, they would dodge. Even if he hit it, it would only be a superficial wound, and could not cause any effective damage. More importantly, he was an existence that had comprehended his own Great Tao. Although he had not become a saint, he was much stronger than Generals Hang and Ha. When he came to this small world, he had already suppressed his cultivation, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was not suitable for him. Moreover, after using the Great Tao of space, he had been regarded as an alien by the will of this small world, and he constantly felt a repulsive force. Even if he could forcibly suppress this repulsive force, it was not a long-term solution. The repulsive force of the will of the world was not unfamiliar to him. When he followed his teacher's order to plot against the Western sect, Taoist Kundi and Taoist Jia-in also used a similar method. If it was not for his teacher's protection, he would have been killed long ago. 30 minutes. At most, it would take him 30 minutes. If he did not leave this world, who knew what kind of monster the will of this world would create to deal with him? Taking a step back, even if the cultivators and demonic beasts of Tianwu world were not his opponents, if the will of the world revealed his whereabouts to the incarnation of Tongtian's sect leader, he would not be able to escape death. Mosquito Daorin put his palms together. When he opened them again, a large number of blood-winged black mosquitoes flew out from his palms and whizzed toward the Black Jiao. At the same time he thought to himself, I have to get rid of this Black Jiao as soon as possible. These blood-winged black mosquitoes were his children, but they did not have their own will. At most, they were puppets, but they were extremely powerful. Once released, no matter what kind of existence the opponent was, they could bite them to death, and absorb their flesh, blood, essence and dharma power completely. During the investiture of the gods' cataclysm, Mosquito Daorin used these blood-winged black mosquitoes to kill the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit and absorb enough power to use the Great Tao of space. With a flap of his wings, He arrived at the western pure land of ultimate bliss. Even the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, who was in the form of a 10,000-year black tortoise, could not withstand the bites of these blood-winged black mosquitoes. Even the White Lotus Boy, who was in charge of capturing the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, could not do anything to these blood-winged black mosquitoes. This proved the power of Mosquito Doran's technique. Ridiculous! Lin Yuan's blue and white eyes flashed coldly. Previously, he was not sure who his opponent was, but after seeing these blood-winged black mosquitoes, if he still could not guess his opponent's identity, then he was too stupid. Chapter 1105. Mosquito Daoren sneered when he saw Lin Yuan control the nether water Black Jiao to transform into a human. Then he sneered at Lin Yuan, "Black Jiao, do you only have these two abilities?" Although he said that, Mosquito Doran's eyes clearly flashed with wariness. After all, he knew himself best. He was a blood-winged black mosquito, one of the 5 most ferocious insects of primordial chaos. He was born as a mutant and naturally had the abilities of a mutant. For example, his mouth part was said to be able to break and absorb everything. Ordinary magic treasures would be damaged after 2 or 3 hits when they collided with his mouth part unless it was a treasure on the level of the Xian Huang Pagoda of heaven and earth. After all, it was a divine item that was said to be invincible once it was used. He could do nothing about it. However, other treasures like the 12 lotus platforms would not fare well against his mouth part. However, the black liquid controlled by the Black Jiao could be said to be his greatest nemesis. It was hard to say if he would be able to defeat that black humanoid if he used his mouth part as a black spear to clash head-on with that black humanoid. If he did, wouldn't he be afraid that he wouldn't die quickly enough if he ended up sucking in an existence similar to the water of the Styx? Blood-winged black mosquito. Another name is bloodthirsty black mosquito. Am I right? Lin Yuan's main body narrowed his eyes and sneered. Why are you pretending to be afraid of the nether water? If I remember correctly, you were born from the nether blood sea. You are one of the 2 connate life forms born from the nether blood sea's origin. The other connate life form is the Nether River Patriarch, who is said to be, "I will not die as long as the blood sea does not dry up." When he spoke up to this point, he paused and teased. Let me guess. Are you thinking about how many moves you will need to kill me? Otherwise, you will find a chance to suck in 2 mouthfuls of Netherrealm black water and pretend to be heavily injured and weak to lure me over and kill me in one blow? Humph. Mosquito Daoren snorted coldly and did not answer Lin Yuan's question directly. Instead he said, "Black Jiao, I have thousands of incarnations. Unless you can destroy all the blood-winged black mosquitoes in the world, my true spirit can return even if you seal me in the Nether River. So, I'll give you 2 choices now. Either you obediently let me kill you, and we can both save some time and energy. Or, you step aside and I'll pretend that I never came to this minor kiliacosm. What do you think?" After being exposed by Lin Yuan, Mosquito Daoren wasn't very angry. However, he really couldn't understand why this Black Jiao would know about him. He had only left the mountain once under his teacher's order. He had been cultivating in the cave all this time. Then I have to thank you for reminding me. Lin Yuan's eyes turned cold. The black figure in front of him shook its black spear. White flames came out of its body. Then he stared at Mosquito Daoren and said, "After all, there is nothing more suitable than fire to kill insects." Mosquito Doran's eyes narrowed as he stared in disbelief at Lin Yuan. He didn't know what to say. He could only say, as expected of the death tribulation of the Hongjun Dao ancestor. This Black Jiao was not strong in Mosquito Doran's eyes. The Black Jiao had not even reached the limit of this minor kiliacosm. Even if he reached that level, he would be an ordinary person in the great wasteland world and not a powerful person. However, this Black Jiao was very strange. First, he threw out the 99 soul-scattering gourd to subdue Generals Hang and Ha. Now, he was facing off against him. He clearly didn't have any trace of enlightenment, but he could see through the power of the spatial laws to a certain extent. Not only could he avoid his magical powers, but he could also lock onto his position at critical moments. Now, he had summoned something like the Nether River to form a water serpent to fight. Only now did he become serious. However, this Black Jiao clearly majored in the Nether River technique. How could he summon the flames that he hated in the blink of an eye? Speaking of which, he wasn't afraid of those flames. After all, He had accumulated more than 10 million blood-winged black mosquitoes over the years. Even if some of them were killed, he could still leave this minor chiliocosm safely. Hiss! Whoosh! The black figure stood in front of Lin Yuan. It seemed to be imitating the breathing of a human. After a while, he suddenly opened his eyes. The white flames rose again and condensed into a mysterious pattern beside him. Mosquito Daoren didn't know what that mysterious pattern represented, but he could clearly feel that the surrounding temperature was dropping. Strange! Mosquito Daoren secretly clicked his tongue. Even though the black flood dragon had clearly summoned flames, it instead caused the surrounding temperature to drop. It was as if this entire region had temporarily turned into a ghost realm. A minor chiliocosm that lacked spiritual energy was enough to make him suffer. If this place really turned into a ghost realm, it would be almost impossible for him to kill the Black Jiao even if he had to pay the price of damaging his foundation. This was because there was no spiritual energy in the ghost realm. There was only endless evil spirit and resentment. It was not a power that he could absorb at all. After all, he was only one of the 5 great ferocious insects. Although his bloodline was top-notch, he couldn't absorb much spiritual energy in the ghost realm. The mysterious pattern beside the black figure became more and more eye-catching. At the same time, Mosquito Daoren also realized that the spiritual energy around him was rapidly being sucked away. It was replaced by the aura of the netherworld, which was entwined with resentment and evil spirit. It could be said that at this moment, the Black Jiao directly turned this area into its home ground. Mosquito Daoren. He had lived for so long that he almost couldn't remember some things in the past. For example, why did he become a disciple of the Grand Elder? But at this moment, he finally remembered those old things. During the God Investiture Tribulation, he called himself Mosquito Daoren. If someone asked him about his background, he would only say that he was a blood-winged black mosquito. He didn't mention that he was a bloodthirsty black mosquito, one of the 5 great ferocious insects that didn't belong to the 10 great ferocious insects. That identity was a complete disgrace to the mainstream cultivators in the untainted world. Therefore, he was placed under the command of the Grand Elder to learn the Tao Te Ching and learn the peaceful in action. He hoped that through these teachings, he could wash away the mark of the netherworld blood sea on his body. Reality proved that he did very well. He really washed away the mark of the netherworld blood sea and became one of the Grand Elder's disciples. He followed his master's order to go to the Western Pure Land to destroy the 12 Lotus platforms. That was something that both he and the Grand Supreme had taken as a gamble. Now, seeing that the surrounding environment was constantly turning into a ghost realm, Mosquito Daoren's face gradually revealed a terrified expression. Chapter 1106. Mosquito Daoren was the disciple of the Grand Supreme and belonged to the 3 sects of the Celestial Sect of Wonders. Since he had never been tainted by the Chi of Calamity, he was not worried that he would die inexplicably in the cultivation tribulation. He traveled to various battlefields, and from time to time, he would crush and kill his enemies through force or other means. His purpose was only to gain experience. Until his teacher personally came to him and gave him the order. The matter of the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit. Now that he thought about it, Mosquito Daoren had never regretted it. The Western sect's methods were even more strange and powerful than he had imagined. Therefore, the great Tao of space that he was so proud of might not have been hidden from the Taoist priest. Otherwise, why would the White Lotus boy happen to take the wrong cloth bag and open the cloth bag that he was hiding in? Moreover, when he was just released, he only felt extremely hungry and needed a large amount of flesh and blood to fill his hunger. Therefore, when he saw the original form of the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit that was beaten up by the Taoist priest, he did not even ask and directly devoured it. When a large number of coincidences gathered together, it was definitely not a coincidence. It was very likely that he had been discovered by the Taoist priest long ago. In addition, the aura on his body was the aura of the Celestial Sect of Wonders that could not be concealed. Therefore, although the Taoist priest was not sure which sect he was from, he had indeed used the Tao of the Celestial Sect of Wonders to cause the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit to die tragically in his hands. It also caused his teacher to pay a huge price to appease the furious Grand Master of Heaven and protect him who did not know anything at that time. However, the matter of him barging into the Western Paradise and eating the 12th grade Lotus platform was beyond the Taoist priest's expectations. After all, the old thief had probably only sensed him, and he was one of the disciples of the celestial sect of wonders. Therefore he wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife and get rid of the Holy Mother of Turtle Spirit, who would pose a great threat to the Western sect in the future. Then, he secretly used this matter to sow discord between the three sects. Due to the unbearable past, Mosquito Dowrin suddenly had a kind of fear and interest. He was afraid that once he fell into this ghost realm and absorbed the aura of the netherworld, he would once again become that incomparably ferocious bloodthirsty black mosquito. The black human figure casually stabbed the black spear in his hand into the void. His hands continuously formed mysterious seals. The pattern formed by the white flames behind him suddenly froze, and the surrounding ghost realm space was completely formed. Good timing. Mosquito Dowrin suddenly shouted, immediately attracting Lin Yuan's attention. However, he did not make a move. Instead, he kept looking around secretly, as if he was trying to escape from Lin Yuan's hands using some kind of secret technique. However, how could he let the Mosquito Taoist leave so easily when he had already acted tough? The ghost realm was fully activated, covering both the humanoid shadow and the Mosquito Dowrin. The Tao that can be said is not the Tao. A name that can be named. An extraordinary name. Mosquito Dowrin began to recite the Tao Te Ching continuously after sensing that his surroundings had turned into a ghost town. He hoped to suppress his bloodthirsty side through this method, and not absorb the ghostly aura of the netherworld around him. Lin Yuan sized up Mosquito Dowrin with great interest, but he nodded silently in his heart. This fellow was actually still unwilling to absorb the netherworld aura when he was already in such a plight. Or rather, what was this fellow afraid of? After pondering for a moment, Lin Yuan said with a smile, Mosquito Dowrin, I know that you can absorb the netherworld aura in the ghost realm. After all, you also came from the netherworld blood sea. So what if you have been practicing the Tao Te Ching for so many years? In the end, it is a cultivation method that only the human race should master. What's the use of practicing it? You were born in the netherworld blood sea. Absorbing the netherworld aura here will only be beneficial to you. Mosquito Dowrin just turned a deaf ear to Lin Yuan's teasing and continued to recite the Tao Te Ching silently. Seeing Mosquito Dowrin's indifference, Lin Yuan felt a burst of irritation for some reason. He sneered and said, well, I'd like to see how long you Mosquito Dowrin can hold on. As soon as he finished speaking, the power of incense on the interface jumped. A moment later, 4 ancient swords with their own characteristics appeared beside Lin Yuan. It was the immortal slaying sword formation formed by the 4 swords of death, slaughter, trap, and death. At the same time, Shangqing Heavenly Lord, who was secretly observing, changed his expression and murmured, how could this be? The immortal slaying sword formation was originally his specialty. Now that the 4 immortal slaying swords and the immortal slaying sword formation were in his hands, how could this black Jiao find the 4 immortal slaying swords? In addition, the immortal slaying sword formation could not be set up casually. Without the help of the immortal slaying sword formation, at least 4 sage-to-be experts at the peak of the sage-to-be would be required to hold a sword in 4 directions and activate it with great Dharma power. However, Lin Yuan could directly activate the immortal slaying sword formation without the help of the immortal slaying sword formation, which was greatly beyond his expectation. He had already made up his mind to stay out of this matter. No matter what the fate of Generals Hang, Ha, and Mosquito Dowrin would be, as long as he felt that they had paid a sufficient price, he would naturally end this matter and would not attack them again. After all, he was a big shot standing at the peak of the great thousand world and would not be calculative about every little thing. Of course, if he felt that Mosquito Dowrin had not paid a sufficient price, his personality would also affect his 3 separations. Naturally, he would not let this matter go. With the command of Lin Yuan's mind, the 4 swords each took their own positions and formed a huge sword formation. They constantly shot out blood-red sword shadows toward Mosquito Dowrin. So that's how it is. Amazing. Really amazing. Shangqing Heavenly Lord carefully observed the 4 swords that Lin Yuan had summoned. However, the power and murderous aura that they should have were not even 1/10 of them. It was not until now that he realized that there was nothing wrong with the ability of his original body. He did not even know that the 4 immortal slaying swords had been stolen. It was that although the Black Jiao had indeed summoned the immortal slaying sword formation to deal with Mosquito Dowrin, it was different from the real immortal slaying sword formation. The immortal slaying sword formation here was just a random image taken from the long river of time. Under the enhancement of the incense power, it had a part of its past power. However, it was still a poor imitation. It could be said that it had the appearance but not the spirit. Those red sword shadows seemed to be the sword chi of the immortal slaying sword formation, but in fact, the black jiao had imitated the incense power into the immortal slaying sword chi and blasted it on Mosquito Daoran. It was no wonder that the immortal slaying sword formation, which was known as the #1 killing formation in the Untainted Land, was not even 1/10 of its original power and murderous aura. Mosquito Daoran was still silently reciting the Tao Te Ching. Soon, a thick layer of mana shield appeared on his body. Chapter 1107. The Tao Te Ching could be said to be a powerful counterattack against Hong Jun by the Grand Supreme. After the investiture of the gods, the great Zhou dynasty ruled the world and enjoyed the fate of the country for 800 years. The royal family's prestige collapsed and the country was torn apart. The feudal lords rose and attacked and annexed each other. Gradually, the spring and autumn period became chaotic. In this chaotic period, countless powerful figures emerged. There was no need to mention the ancestors of the various schools of thought. In fact, there were only a dozen schools of thought that left their names. However, at that time there were far more than just 100 schools of thought. Heroes and sages were also constantly emerging and there were always a few names that could not be ignored. Confucianism, Confucius, Taoism, Laozi, School of Moz. Not to mention the school of Yin Yang and its ancestor Zhou Yan, which was separated from the Taoism. It was a game between Hao Tian and the Grand Supreme. Who knew which of the sages in the world were the spies of the powerful figures in the Untainted Land, and which of them were the powerful figures born in time? But no matter what, Laozi Li Er appeared because the Grand Supreme did not hesitate to gamble his own good corpse incarnation and reincarnate into the mortal world to plan this great merit for himself. Before the appearance of the Tao Te Ching, the Grand Elder was generally addressed as the hierarch of the Ren school. Li Er traveled to various countries to promote Taoism. Before he left Hangu Pass and became a Buddha, he gradually became known as the Tao Ancestor. This behavior was tantamount to a provocation and declaration of war against Hong Jun. Because everyone who knew about the existence of the Untainted Land knew that the Tao Ancestor was Hong Jun from the beginning. After Laozi was born, the Tao Ancestor gradually became Li Er. After dealing with Hong Jun, Li Er lightly rode out of Hangu Pass on his green ox and transformed into Shakyamuni to perform the beard transformation Buddha. He connected the whole incident. At that time, the Grand Supreme was already a heavenly sage. Even if he founded Taoism and went with the general trend to obtain great merit, it was meaningless. Firstly, he was already one of the sages of the heavenly Tao. Naturally, he could no longer rely on his merits to become a sage of the human Tao. Furthermore, during the chaotic times of the spring and autumn period, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were not just for show. With their hatred for Hongjuan's disciples, if the Grand Supreme wanted to become a sage of the human Tao, they might think that this was another scheme of Hongjuan's. They would definitely interfere and cause a lot of trouble. Therefore, the Grand Supreme had completed the stealing of the position of the Taoist master step by step, and attacked the Western sect at the same time. Perhaps in the eyes of the Grand Supreme at that time, the battle between the Celestial Sect of Wonders and the Western sect was actually nothing much. It was just Hongjuan's scheme. Then the question was, where did the power of merit that was obtained after the establishment of Taoism go? The answer was Tao Te Ching. In the world of low-level martial arts, the Tao Te Ching might be an ordinary Taoist scripture with some principles recorded in it. Even the cultivation method of Laozi in it was an unsolved mystery. However, in a world like the Untainted World, the Tao Te Ching was definitely a real treasure of merit. Its grade was definitely not low. However, it was also during the spring and autumn period that the Grand Supreme had done too much. Therefore, after the calamity of the journey to the west began, the Celestial Sect of Wonders was defeated by the Western sect. It was obvious whether Hong Jun had interfered behind this. Interestingly, many people thought that Patriarch Bodhi was the incarnation of Buddha, but in fact, he was not. Because there were many interpretations of the journey to the west. For example, Sun Wukong's cultivation method was said to be the great way of heaven immortal art, and some said it was the great way of heaven immortal art. However, there was no doubt that Bodhi had given Sun Wukong the cultivation method of the Celestial Sect of Wonders. In the original book, there was a poem that said, "Tao is the most mysterious. Don't treat Jindan as an ordinary thing. If you don't meet a good person to teach you, you will be speechless." Have you ever seen a disciple of the Western sect of wonders cultivate Jindan instead of Jindan? From the beginning, this heaven's equal sage of the Eastern land did not aim to cultivate Buddhism. It was just that the celestial sect of wonders was defeated in the calamity of the journey to the West. Therefore, in the end, the monkey became the victorious fighting Buddha of the Western sect. Mosquito Daorin sat cross-legged in the gloomy demonic region and kept reciting the contents of the Tao Te Ching. His facial features, which had become somewhat ferocious due to the influence of the nether ghost Qi, gradually became peaceful. He constantly emitted a natural and indifferent aura, as if he had completely merged with the world. When the Black Jiao and Mosquito Daorin showed their skills, it might be nothing in the untainted world. However, in the eyes of the guards of the Celestial Gate, it was undoubtedly at the level of immortals fighting. After all, the Tianwu world was a small kiliacosm. Coupled with the fact that someone was secretly suppressing it, it was unable to complete the three realms. Not only was there an upper limit to the realm of these cultivators and demonic beasts, there was even a gap in the originally powerful cultivation techniques due to the changes in the great Tao of heaven and earth. Those powerful techniques and divine abilities that originally only existed in the records of cultivation techniques could not be used. When one reached the realm of ascension, it was simply a wrong path. If someone were to delve into these techniques and divine abilities, Qi deviation would be the most basic operation. However, the skills of the Black Jiao and Mosquito Daorin, one of them revealed a set of seals and directly turned the world into the gloomy demonic region. The other was reciting scriptures that they could not understand. However, he was one with the world and was not affected by the gloomy demonic region. The Shangqing Heavenly Lord who was secretly observing looked at the Mosquito Daorin, who was reciting the Tao Te Ching with a gloomy gaze. For a moment, he was speechless. He had always thought that when he joined forces with his two elder brothers to scheme against that old man, Hong Jun, all these years of running around the myriad realms, he had barely reached the stage where he could exchange blows with Hong Jun outside of the Eldritch world. This was already a very impressive progress. However, he did not expect that he had still underestimated the heroes of the world. There was no need to talk about old ancestor Yang Mei, who was currently in the Sea of Sufferings. At his peak, he was able to directly pull Hong Jun, who had already merged with the heavenly Tao, into the river of time to battle in the Eldritch world. In the end, they were evenly matched. As for that big brother of his, it seemed that he had not been idle all these years. From the Tao Te Ching, he actually could not sense the presence of a heavenly Tao sage. However, if he were to be serious, this power was indeed the power of a sage. No, calling it a sage was a bit of an insult to this power. This was the power of a Chaos Daluo Golden Immortal. Without the support of the primordial violet energy, without entering the heavenly Tao, earth Tao and human Tao, he had the power that was not inferior to a sage. His elder brother had probably followed him and schemed against that old man, Hong Jun. Although he was still one of the 6 heavenly sages in name, he had already transformed from a prisoner to an existence that was not inferior to Hong Jun in the Eldritch world. He was a sage of the great Tao. Humph! The Shangqing Heavenly Lord snorted coldly. Staring at the Mosquito Daorin who was reciting the Tao Te Ching, he murmured, "Is this a warning to me not to attack your disciple? Is the hatred of the Guiling going to end here? Don't even think about it." You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.